Hey friends, before we dive into tonight's story, did you know that nearly 80% of viewers aren't subscribed? If you're enjoying this content, hit that subscribe button. It really helps keep these long stories coming. Also, for even more police horror stories, check out my new channel. The link's in the description and pinned comment. I'd love it if you stop by and subscribe. I'd love to hear from you. What time is it where you are, and which city are you listening from tonight? Now, sit back, relax, and let's get into it. I remember when the call came in. The storm had soaked my clothes, and I was shivering as I took off my jacket, but the adrenaline coursing through my veins kept me from feeling the cold. It was March 3rd, 2022, at 12:38 p.m., when the radio crackled from headquarters. Sheriff's Department requesting immediate backup to 482 Carmichael Way. A civilian dispute has escalated into a violent altercation. A firearm may have been discharged. My partner and I had just started our shift 20 minutes earlier, and the K9 van was parked behind us. I reached behind me and tied my German Shepherd Major to the harness. His teeth began to chatter. I think he was anxious, and he was growling. I calmed him down with one hand while starting the minibus with the other. Major had been with me for 7 years, accompanying me on countless missions, attacks, robberies, searches for missing children. He was almost as aware of the danger as I was. Today, we would need every ounce of that awareness. The address was a 2-story ranch house with peeling white paint and a sagging porch. Front yard littered with dead leaves and furniture moved aside like victims of an earlier struggle. As I killed the engine, deputies fanned out behind me. I could hear hushed voices. Paper service only, no contact unless... The unless trailed off with a collective inhale. I clicked open the passenger door, Major sliding out on 4 silent paws, nose low to the damp grass. My pulse hammered in my ears as I checked my Glock, slide, locked back, chamber clear, then reloaded and dropped the clip into place. A deputy raised his hand. He'd tried to serve the woman, Yan Lee, eviction notice earlier that morning. When she saw them, she brandished a knife, 8 inches of polished steel, slammed the door, barricaded herself inside. They waited, called us. That was all we knew. No intel on mental state, no history beyond the civil papers. Now, Major and I would be the edge of force, the option to end without bloodshed. If only she'd come out. The front door shuddered under the deputy's shoulder. A crack, like a tree trunk splitting in half. I moved forward, voice calm but firm. "Police! Miss Lee, open the door. You're only hurting yourself in there." No answer. Major's ears twitched. He caught something in the attic rafters. A subtle shift. I nodded to the sergeant. They backed off. The house stood silent except for the storm's pattering and the deputy's heavy breathing. I eased Major inside on leash. Hallway narrow, wallpaper peeled in curling strips, furniture upturned against the walls. Rainwater dripped through a hole in the ceiling, pooling in the foyer. Our boots slapped wood as we advanced. I whispered to him, "Find her." His powerful shoulders rolled forward, nose dipped. We followed him down the hallway. At the far end, a door cracked open. An invitation or a taunt, I couldn't tell. I pivoted my torch, beam dancing over the edge of a floral-patterned rug. Blood, a smear, dark and drying, angled toward the bedroom. Major's hackles rose. My heart clenched at the primal memory. Last time he'd tracked a blood trail, we'd found a dead toddler under a porch, and no sirens could scrub that scene from my mind. "Come on, boy," I murmured. "Keep moving." We entered the room. Nothing but overturned lamps and a closet door swinging. The bedroom window was covered by heavy drapes. When I seized one corner and yanked it aside, rain light flickered across an empty bed frame. Pillows soaked, tissues scattered, tears wiped away. I swallowed hard. Major nosed a pillowcase, snarled once. I leaned forward. The zipper of a duffel bag, partially open, white stitching taut. I tugged it free. Inside, a motel-style knife sheath. No knife. But the bag was too light. I unzipped fully, felt cold metal. A .38 revolver, cylinder 4, rounds loaded. Dispatch's voice came in. Deputy on scene, front door secured, no visual on Ms. Lee. My jaw tightened. Major strained at the leash, sensing momentum. I holstered my pistol, clipped the bag's strap around my shoulder, then let the leash go slack. We moved to the closet. A ranch-style sliding door, off its rollers. I pried it open. A figure lunged, thin, wild-eyed, hair matted, arms flailing. Major tore forward, jaws snapping. I fired one shot into the ceiling, a warning shot, the detonation ricocheting like thunder. She shrieked, high-pitched, inhuman. Major recoiled briefly, then lunged again. I unleashed the second, another ceiling shot. "Stop! Stop!" I shouted, heart thrumming so loud it drowned out the storm. But she didn't stop. She pushed at the closet frame, pressing out, knife gleaming. "Major, heel!" I barked. He pivoted midair, landing beside me with a suppressed growl. My finger found the trigger, a single round chambered. I aimed at her thigh, the standard protocol for less lethal intent. The muzzle flared. The bullet tore through the door frame, embedding in the wall. She paused, chest heaving, eyes flaring with something raw and feral. Then she charged. The world exploded into chaos. Major lunged, teeth finding canvas jacket. I pivoted, shot again, this time true. Impact. The room fell silent, except for her ragged breathing and the drip of ceiling rain. Major locked jaws on her arm. I rushed in, cuffing her as she went limp. Blood so dark it looked black pooled beneath the closet threshold. Everything moved in an echo. The snap of cuffs, the zip of evidence bags, the slam of the closet door shut behind us. I knelt beside her, hand pressed to where Major's collar had cut into flesh. She was alive. I eased pressure on her wound. Too late to wonder if she'd survive. Deputies flooded in. Lights, radios, urgent questions. I barely heard them. My own breathing was a whisper. I left in the ambulance. Major riding beside me, head bowed. I lay back on the stretcher, sight blurry. The EMTs asked if I was stable. I nodded once, then closed my eyes. My belly tightened in nauseous coils. A bullet had grazed her femoral artery. 4 more minutes, and I woke in a hospital bed. Splints on both forearms, burns across my chest from the shotgun's muzzle blast. My own scrub shirt was shredded. They told me I'd been stabbed, knife ricochet off rib cage, and shot once in the side. She'd survived, but she was gone now, transported, processed, a face on a booking sheet. I asked for her name. They said, Yan Lee, age 47, eviction notice refused, previous assault with a deadly weapon. I closed my eyes and remembered her wild charge, the howl of wind through the broken ceiling. The ride home from the hospital was quiet. Major lay panting in the back seat, head resting on my gear bag. I drove through empty streets slick with rainwater reflecting neon signs that blurred into watery streaks. My hands gripped the wheel until I could feel every ridge on the textured leather. The pulse in my wrist hammered in time with the windshield wipers, each pass punctuated by static crackles in my radio, a ghost chorus of all the calls I never truly finished. At home, the hallway light flickered when I stepped inside. I paused at the threshold, listening for my wife's voice, but the house was silent. plates in the dishwasher clinked as if someone had only just left. My boots made soft thuds against the hardwood floor. I moved like a soldier stepping into an occupied zone, every nerve on edge. Major padded behind me. At the bedroom door, I hesitated. The room was dark except for the sliver of orange streetlight slipping through the curtains. I took off my jacket and boots, each movement deliberate so I wouldn't drop anything. In the bathroom mirror, I saw my face for the first time. Pale, etched with pain lines I didn't know I had. Scars crisscrossed my chest and side, each one a memento of the day's violence. I rinsed my face, but the water felt like needles on my skin. I stared at my reflection. A worn silhouette of the person I used to be, eyes too old for a man my age. The hum of the heater kicked in, and I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Major nosed against my leg, reminding me he was there. I patted him on the head, the pressure of my palm heavy with guilt that I had put him in harm's way. He whimpered softly, and a knot tightened in my throat. I whispered, "We did what we had to do." But the words were hollow. That night, sleep was impossible. I lay on my back, staring at the ceiling fan turning in slow arcs. Every creak in the house sounded like the closet door in that apartment. I could see the shards of broken wood, hear the echo of my shot. My mind drifted to the look in her eyes, Miss Lee's wild, desperate glare as she barreled toward me. Not like a monster, like someone drowning, clawing at anything that might save her. I bolted upright in bed, sweat slick on my skin. My heart thudded in my ears, drowning out the muted thunder outside. I tried to steady my breathing, but flashbacks splintered through my thoughts. Major snapping at her jacket, the tunnel vision of my sight down the barrel, the sickening thud of her body hitting the floor. I shook my head, willing the memories away, but they clung like shadows. By dawn, I realized I hadn't slept. I stumbled to the kitchen for coffee, eyelids heavy, vision blurred. The pot gurgled as it brewed. I watched the dark liquid drip into the carafe. A slow drip, 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 echoing in the quiet. I filled a mug and inhaled the steam, hoping the caffeine could wash away the ache in my chest. It didn't. At the precinct, I reported back on light duty. Captain Jennings met me at the door, his face drawn, as if he'd aged 10 years overnight. He clasped my shoulder. "Heard you're okay," he said softly. I nodded, words stuck in my throat. He glanced at Major, who sat dutifully beside me. "Good dog." Inside, the squad room felt smaller. Deputies moved around me, conversations halting when they saw the bandages on my arms. I sat at my desk, logging the incident report, detailing every second. Descended hallway at 12:42 p.m. Heard movement inside closet. Discharged less lethal warning rounds. My eyes stung as I typed. By the time I recorded each shot and stab wound, my fingers trembled. Who was I writing this for? The report would close the case, but it couldn't close the scream that lingered in my mind. Lunch was a sandwich eaten at my desk. Half a turkey on wheat, crusts cut off like they'd been deemed unworthy. I barely tasted it. Around me, the hum of copiers and muted laughter felt alien. I stared at the phone, half expecting it to ring with another crisis. But it stayed silent. Afternoon brought a call from Internal Affairs. A routine inquiry about use of force. I met them in a small interview room stuffed with gray office chairs and a whiteboard listing deadlines. They asked about my decision to fire into the door frame, about my aim, my commands. I answered quietly, precisely. When they asked if I would do anything differently, I stared at the table, fingertips brushing the wood grain. "No," I said finally. I did what I had to do. But in my mind, I replayed every moment. wondering if another command or a different angle might have spared us both. Back at home that evening, I pulled the photos from my phone. Blurry images of the bloodstain pattern from the scene, evidence markers by the closet, Major's muzzle glistening with wet fur. I stared at them on the screen, hating that I couldn't unsee them. I deleted them one by one, except the last shot. Major, panting beside me, gaze steady. I saved that. I needed something to remember the good. Night came again too soon. I lay on the sofa, Major curled at my feet. The TV flickered with police procedural reruns, a cruel reminder of the fictional ease with which crimes were solved and offenders sentenced. I muted the volume and closed my eyes. The silence was thick, oppressive. In the listening darkness, I heard the phone ring in my head, the operator's hold tone echoing from Florida, distant yet constant. And beneath it, a second voice, hers, calling out, somewhere between a plea and a threat. I opened my eyes. Major stirred, ears pricked. The house felt alive with unspoken questions. What if I'd taken her knife rather than fired? What if backup had arrived sooner? What if... I pushed the thoughts away, pressed into the sofa cushions. But they returned, each one a drop of water on stone. Slowly, relentlessly. Outside, the wind rattled the window panes. Inside, dread settled in my chest, like the calm before another storm. In my dreams, I saw her reaching through the closet door, eyes wide as she whispered, "Why didn't you help me?" I woke with a start, heart pounding. Major was at the foot of the sofa, watching me. I could almost see her reflection in his dark eyes. I reached down and scratched behind his ears, voice barely a whisper. "We're not done yet, boy. Tomorrow, the report goes final, and the prosecutor will decide. But tonight, in the hush of my home, I know the case is never closed. The only question is whether I'll ever find peace, or if her voice will echo in every call I answer from now on." I eased back into the driver's seat hours ago, yet I'm still strapped here. Major asleep in the passenger seat, rain pattering like drumbeats on the roof. The case file lies open on my lap. Typed pages edged with red annotations. Questions I posed to myself when no one was listening. Now I press record on my phone's voice memo, not to document calls or crime scenes, but to catch the confessions I can't share elsewhere. My voice comes out rough. It's 3:14 a.m. I drove past Carmichael Way twice before I saw her car still parked on the curb. No lights on inside the house, curtains drawn tight. I swallowed down the knot in my throat and stepped out. I pause, listen to the echo of my words drop into silence, then continue. When I opened the front door, the hallway was bathed in flashing red from deputies' cruisers parked out front. The threshold cracked like old bone beneath my weight. I heard Major's paws tap behind me, steady, sure, as if he needed to know I was there. I told him, "Stay close," and we moved in. I clear my throat. The living room was trashed, couch cushions slashed, coffee table overturned, a broken lamp on the floor casting crooked shadows. Rainwater dripped from a hole in the ceiling, pooling near the fireplace. I almost slipped, caught myself on the mantel. That's when I saw the bloodstains smear along the wall, damp and dark. My hand goes to the scar on my side, still tender under the hospital wrap. It led to the staircase. I listen to the slip of fabric as I shift, then speak again. I took the first step and Major winced at my hip, then shook his head, focused upward. I cracked my flashlight on, strobe of white that made dust swirl in dancing motes. At the top, the hallway stretched out. Doors on either side. The closet door at the end I recognized, off its rollers, paint chipped. I whispered, "There she is." and Major sprang. My pulse pounds in my ears as I replay the next moment. She emerged like a wounded animal, knife in hand, face hollow, eyes glazed. I fired the warning shot and the drywall exploded around her. Major surged forward, teeth bared. Then I fired again, direct, calculated into her thigh. She cried out, a sound that lanced through the room and collapsed to one knee. Major barked, low and guttural, pressing her arm with his weight. I cuffed her, voice shaking as I said, "It's over, Miss Lee." She looked at me then, eyes unseeing, as if she'd left that body on the floor. My breath comes uneven now. I pause the recording, rub my temple. When I press play, I hear the creak of my own boots, the crack of each warning shot, that inhuman shriek. I hit record again. I knelt beside her, Major's muzzle inches from her face, panting smoke in the cold air. She didn't fight when I searched her bag, the .38, the knife sheath. Evidence I logged immediately. Medics arrived minutes later, but it felt like hours. I stood and watched them lift her onto a gurney, sealing the scene. Then they slid me onto another wagon, and lights against the ambulance window pulsed red and white like fractured hearts. I swallow, eyes stinging. Back at the station, I filed the report. I wrote that we used less lethal force, only after exhaustions of all options. The words stung, less lethal, when I knew how easily they tip into lethal. Captain Jennings nodded at my summary. He said, "Good job." And I nodded, but I heard only Major's growl and the echo of her fall. My voice softens. I carry that moment with me. The thump of her body, the drip of blood on the carpet, the creak of that closet door swinging shut behind us. Every time I close my eyes, I see her hand, pale, trembling, and I wonder if she ever had a chance to put the knife down, or if another shot, a different tactic, could have saved her from the blood on that floor. I pause again, letting the rain's rhythm fill the space. Then I add quietly, "Tomorrow, I testify at her preliminary hearing. I will describe every step, every command, every heartbeat that led to those shots. 2 warning rounds, 1 aimed, a single fatal strike to her femoral artery. I will stand behind the podium in full uniform and say that I acted within policy. But tonight, in this car, I tell the truth, that I still see her falling, and I still hear her scream." I end the recording and pocket the phone. Major shifts beside me, rousing from his slumber. I step out into the rain, leave the lights on in the van, and walk toward the precinct. The storm intensifies, thunder rolling like distant artillery. With each step, I feel the tension coiling tighter. I can't escape the question that trails me. Was it enough? I flicked on the overhead lights in the dispatch center, the fluorescent hum vibrating through my chest. My badge still felt cold against my skin beneath my shirt, a reminder that I'd traded one role for another, but the weight of responsibility was the same. The radio crackled with noise, units reporting clear calls, code 4s, a juvenile runaway located, a fender bender on I-5. I let the chaos wash over me as I slipped into the chair behind the console. Major lay curled at my feet. He'd insisted on coming along. Deputies hovered outside the glass partition, uncertain, knowing I needed the comfort of my partner's presence. Without warning, the handset rang. My name popped up on the caller ID, unknown caller. I pressed answer. A woman's voice whispered, fractured across the line, "You shot her. You." The line went dead. My fingers hovered over the keys as I dialed back, but the line was dead on both ends. I leaned back, chest tightening, and ran a hand through my hair. After everything I'd been through, why did the guilt still find new ways to ambush me? I reached past the main console to the incident file lying open. Yan Li's report. Photos of the blood spatter pattern. The closet frame shot out of alignment. My own statement typed in cold clinical prose. I described her charge as aggressive assault, but in my head I replayed her slumped form. Major's muzzle pressed to her arm as though he were trying to comfort her. My teeth clenched. The radio barked overhead. Unit 24. Respond code 3 to 97 Lavender Drive. I pulled my focus back. My role now was to keep the city moving, to catch those moments of crisis before they spiraled. I tapped the mic. Dispatch, this is Operator 47. Lavender Drive, ETA 2 minutes. My voice was calm, practiced, an armor I hid behind. I pressed the talk button. Priority 1. Elderly female reported disoriented, possible Alzheimer's, walking near the creek banks, no traffic units near. Send patrol and EMS. The hum of fluorescent lights and distant thunder blended into the mechanical beat of call tones and hold music. While I logged the call, my mind drifted to her scream. The night my world fractured into before and after. I pictured the portal of that closet door swinging inward, the gleam of steel under the attic light, the spray of rain against broken ceiling tiles. I blinked, shook it off, and welcomed the next call. The headset pressed heavy to my ears as I said, 911, what's your emergency? A child's voice, shaky. There's someone in my backyard. They're watching me. My pulse quickened. Can you see them now? I asked, fingertips dancing over the mapping software. Yes, by the fence, black hoodie. I keyed a locator and dispatched the nearest unit. Keep speaking to me. Is anyone else there? The girl whispered, No, I don't think so. I stayed with her until the patrol car's sirens drew near. Only when she whispered, Thank you, did I release the line. Major whined softly. I glanced down. His eyes were fixed on me as if he could sense the shaking under my calm exterior. I patted his head. Good boy. My fingers tapped the keyboard to clear the log, but the woman's broken whisper from the unknown call haunted me. I replayed it in my head. You shot her. You. It reassembled into a question. Why did you shoot her? That single, fractured thought lodged itself in my mind. The rain intensified, hammering the building's metal roof. Outside, deputies returned from assignments. Some with simple code 4s, others shaking their heads at domestic disputes that resolved without violence. I filed each incoming call, routing resources, saving lives in increments, trying to outrun my own doubts. I answered another call. My husband won't wake up. He's not breathing. Code 2, medical dispatched. I stayed on the line, guiding CPR steps, voice measured, heart racing. I noticed the clock flip past midnight. 12 hours on duty already, and the night was young. My eyelids grew heavy, the ache in my side reminding me of the bullet wound that had barely healed. I rubbed the scar beneath my shirt, remembering her face. I told myself to focus on the now, the stolen seconds to save someone else. My training kicked in. Triage calls, coordinate units, reassure callers. The console's steady beeps became a metronome, pushing me forward. Then came the call that froze me. 911, help me, please. The voice was her voice. Women, mid-40s, I guessed, breath hitching in the rain. Ma'am, where are you? I asked, dread pooling in my stomach. I'm at 482 Carmichael Way, please, she sobbed. Don't let them hurt me. My breath caught. I opened Yan Li's incident file, that address, the one where I shot her. My throat closed. Stay where you are, I said, voice cracking despite my best effort. Units are en route. My monitor lit up with mapping pings as I dispatched patrol cars. Signal 13, possible hostage, I added, heart pounding. Outside the glass, Major's ears pricked. He rose, pacing at the partition. Deputy's eyes flicked between me and the console monitors, concern and disbelief in equal measure. I keyed the mic. All available units to Carmichael Way. Repeat, Carmichael Way. Emergency override. The hum of the storm grew louder. The console's lights flashed urgent. I watched the GPS icons converge on the house. "Caller, can you see the lights?" I asked, voice unsteady. "Yes, they're here," she whispered. "I'm hiding in the closet." My heart seized, the echo of that same closet door from years ago. I shut my eyes, blocked out the console's lights. "Stay calm, help is minutes away." I gripped the headset so tight my knuckles whitened. Outside, sirens wailed in the rain. "Units on scene," the first patrol reported. My breath hitched. I typed into the log. "In progress. Possible second occurrence of request for cover." My heart hammered. This was impossible. Yan Li was in custody. Incarcerated, court dates pending. She couldn't be the caller. I ordered a trace, incoming line location. The map blinked. A single dot, right there at Carmichael Way. My chest tightened as I realized someone was using her voice, her fear, to lure us back to that exact place. I leaned in, voice low. "Keep talking. I need to know what you see." The closet door creaked open in her recording, just a whisper of sound. I froze. Something was wrong with the audio feed. The static spike, the hiss of distortion. A second voice under hers. A man's laugh, low and chilling. I ripped off the headset. Major growled, hackles raised. The center's lights flickered as thunder rattled the windows. I jumped up. "Clear the floor, code black." Deputies spilled in, hands on weapons. The door to the dispatch room locked behind me. The console's screens all showed the same image. The dark hallway of that ranch house. Point of view from inside the front door. The closet door at the end, slowly opening. Silence fell. Then a single whisper over the speakers. "Why did you shoot her?" And somewhere in the back of my mind I heard another voice answering, stained with regret and fear. But it wasn't mine. The hum of the monitors felt suddenly oppressive. Each screen's glow like the eyes of predators watching me. The door to the dispatch room rattled under a soft impact. A glancing tap. Major's hackles rose. His low growl vibrated through the thin carpet. I spun toward the door, heart hammering, as silver light from the hallway slit through the gap beneath it. "Hold position," I muttered, voice brittle. Deputies pressed against the wall behind me, weapons drawn, breaths held. The console's audio output crackled with static. Then that chilling whisper again, louder now. "Why did you shoot her?" No one moved. The closet door image on the screen twitched forward, propelled by an unseen hand, inch by inch, the wood splintering at the corner. A deputy keyed the mic. "Central, this is Unit 12, status?" No answer. The earpieces crackled empty. I reached to take the handset off hook, thumb trembling over the switch. The line was dead. I forced the cradle down, linking back into the VoIP backup. Dial tone, then the stormy hiss of external lines. Nothing. My blood ran cold. "They've cut comms," I said. "We're isolated." Flashing from the server rack's indicator lights, faint red glowed across the wall. The intruder had overwritten the feed, but to what end? The screens flickered, cycling through cameras in every precinct corridor, then plunged the monitors dark for a heartbeat, an electronic heartbeat, before illuminating one final view. The front of this very dispatch center, the glass partition reflecting our silhouettes against the rain-slicked parking lot. I pivoted to the console's master power. Switch, thumb on the safety cover. Shutting down might kill the feed, but it would also lock us out of every system, calls, databases, alarms. "No," I said. "They want us blind." Major emitted a soft whine, pressing his nose into my shin as if urging me to run. I settled my jaw. "We fight back." I battered the keyboard. "Initiate lockdown protocol. Doors metal reinforced, internal sensors engaged, silent alarm to the tactical response team." Red text scrolled across the screens. "Access denied." The feed returned, but it was no longer surveillance footage. It was the closet from Carmichael Way, glowing in the empty frame of a security camera. Then, through that video, a hand reached through the closet's broken door, palm open as if to push us inside. A deputy stiffened. "That's impossible. This is a private residence, no connection to our networks." I didn't answer. Instead, I reached toward the microphone and tapped its tip against my forehead in reflex, then cleared my throat. "You there, whoever's listening, this is Operator 47. I want to hear your voice. Explain yourself." Static answered. Then a slow message played back in a distorted pitch. My own voice, patched through speakers in a mocking echo. "Why did you shoot her?" But it was elongated, layered with other voices underneath. A child screaming, a man cursing, and Yan Li's whispered plea. The effect twisted my stomach into knots. "Shut it down," I hissed at the TAC operator. "Now!" He mashed the power button. Monitors went black one by one, the hum cutting off until only the room's emergency lights glowed. My fingers ached where I'd slammed the console. My ears rang. In the red half-light, I could make out every deputy's tense form. We waited. Nothing but the storm outside and the distant sirens of backup units that had finally answered our silent alarm. Minutes passed, then tap, tap again at the outer door. This time, louder, deliberate. Whoever it was no longer hiding. My gun hand dropped to my side. I said quietly, "Major, behind me." He shifted, tail low. Another rap. We braced. I raised my voice. "Police, identify yourself." The knocks turned to deliberate hammer blows, the door's metal core groaning. I recognized that sound. The same collapse of the closet door at Carmichael Way. Metal on wood under pressure. Something was forcing its way in. My breath hitched. Flashlights from the corridor swept under the gap. Blue beams piercing our chamber. But they weren't moving inside. They danced across the stainless steel edges of the console and the stand of video racks. And then, almost imperceptibly, a figure stepped into the light at the threshold. Tall, lean, coat dripping rainwater, head hooded. I couldn't make out a face. The figure raised one gloved hand, fingers outstretched, and said in a voice that whispered directly in my mind rather than through the door, "I'm still waiting for your answer." The room fell silent as the figure stepped forward, past the deputies, past me. The emergency lights flickered and went out, plunging us into darkness interrupted only by the storm's flash of lightning through the windows. A soft click echoed, metal on metal. My pistol discharged in the crouch of reflex, but there was no recoil, no report. When the lightning illuminated the room again, the figure was gone. The closet door feed flickered back on the master screen, now just grainy static. The server rack's red light pulsed in the dark. Major whimpered, nudging my hand. I stared at the console, sweat cold on my back. If this was a trap, it had sprung shut around us. I pressed my palm to the monitor, willing the feed to reveal a clue, and the static resolved into one clear phrase scrawled across the grain. "Help me find the door." The emergency lights blinked back on. Deputies scanned the room, their weapons lowered but eyes wild. I shut off the video feed and turned all screens back to mapping. The only active dot was my own, here in dispatch, surrounded by walls that seemed to constrict. I swallowed hard, voice barely above a whisper. We need to clear this building. Check every room, corridor, closet. Major, stay with me. We're looking for a door that doesn't open the way it should." My knee trembled when I straightened, but I had to move. We stepped out into the corridor, flashlights in hand, the storm's shadows chasing us down the hallway. As we passed the last row of holding cells, I paused. The heavy steel door to the interview room stood ajar, where I'd faced internal affairs just days before. Inside, the wall was plastered with photos. Yan Lee's eviction notice, the knife sheath, the closet frame from Carmichael Way, her hospital ID band, even the blurred image of her eyes wide in shock. A deputy called out, "Sir, look." We formed a half circle around the doorway. Beneath the photos, scrawled in what looked like blood echoing in my mind, were the words, "You still have the key." My throat went dry. I recognized that phrase, something I'd whispered to myself in the van after the shooting. A key, but I'd never found a physical key. It was a metaphor, a token of guilt I thought I'd locked away. Now, it lay before me, carved into plaster like a judge's verdict. Major growled, nose quivering. The corridor stretched into darkness on either side. Every exit sign glowed green but offered no comfort. I clenched my jaw and stepped forward. "We find it," I said, voice steady even as my heart pounded through my ribs. "We find the key." The deputies shifted, flashlights skittering across the floor. We advanced, each step echoing in the empty station. And somewhere, in the static churn of monitors rebooting behind us, that whisper drifted once more. "Help me find the door." I clicked off the console's rebooted screens and motioned to the deputies. We fanned out in pairs down the corridor, flashlights slicing through shadows cast by the emergency lighting. The first metal door bore a stenciled sign, "Evidence Storage." Its lock was intact, but the handle turned silently, yielding to a tap code knock I'd taught Major once on a training ride. He snarled softly as I rapped the sequence. The door swung open into a room half stacked with cardboard boxes and metal shelving. The air smelled of mildew and lingering chemicals from processed crime scene kits. I swept my light across the rows until I found what I was looking for. A scuffed wooden key taped beneath a shelf, the surface worn smooth by countless fingers. My breath caught. This was the only physical key I'd ever seen, one I'd dismissed as metaphor until now. I lifted it on gloved fingers. The metal was cool, heavier than expected, and engraved with a tiny symbol. 2 interlocking triangles fading under the tarnish. I held it up to the light, heart thudding. "Got it," I whispered, passing the key to the nearest deputy who pocketed it. My instincts told me we needed to use it where it truly belonged. We retraced our steps toward the interview room where the photos had taunted us. The door stood closed now, but the scrawled message glowed across its surface as I approached. "You still have the key." I unlocked my cuffed hand to free the handle, slid the key into the oak grain and turned. The lock clicked, a sound soaked in finality. I pushed the door open and felt the weight of gravity shift in the room. My flashlight beam revealed row upon row of filing cabinets, case files, witness statements, departmental memos, all organized, yet coated in a thin layer of dust, as if untouched for years. Major padded in behind me, muzzle low, whiskers twitching. He nosed past cabinets until a single drawer stood ajar. Label embossed in brass, Carmichael Way, closed cases. My fingers hovered over the handle. I yanked it open, and inside lay a thick manila folder, yellowed edges brittle. I peeled it free, thumb sliding across handwriting in jagged ink. Subject, Yan Lee. Date, March 3rd, 2022. Outcome, deceased. I paused to steady my breathing. I'd known she survived that night, gone to custody awaiting trial, but this said deceased. I flipped through pages. Autopsy report, photographs of her body on the medical examiner's table. Eyes closed, face serene in death. My chest tightened. I traced the date stamped at the top, 2 days after the shooting. This file had been sealed off the books, a truth hidden from me. A low rumble reverberated through the station. Air vents, or perhaps something deeper. I slammed the drawer shut, but the rumble persisted, growing louder. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered, strobing the room in jittery pulses. Deputies jostled for position, weapons raised, eyes wild. I clutched the folder against my chest and edged back toward the door. That's when I noticed the baseboard leading to the adjacent wall had a seam, narrow, almost invisible under the dust. I ran my flashlight along it until the beam caught a slight gap. My pulse rippled through my limbs as I pressed against the panel. It shifted outward, revealing a narrow passage carved hollow behind the cabinets. I exchanged a glance with Major. He cocked his head, muscles coiled. I tucked the folder under my arm, pulled the panel fully free and ducked inside. The passage was cramped and impossibly long, damp air pressing in as exposed pipes rattled overhead. We followed the curve, boots slapping wet concrete, until the tunnel ended in a heavy steel door devoid of markings. A keypad hung beside it. Its keys were worn. Above it, a discreet slot that matched the size of the wooden key I'd found. My hands trembled as I slid the key into the slot. It fit perfectly. I turned it. The lock disengaged with a resonant thunk that echoed like a heartbeat. The door hissed open, revealing a stairwell descending into darkness. A single bulb at the top flickered uncertainly. I glanced back. No deputies had followed into the tunnel. They'd been too startled. I tapped the nearest button on my radio. Operator 47 to Unit 12, if you can read me, stand by at dispatch room. We'll update your status in 2 minutes. No response. The entire station's comms must still be offline. I slipped through the door and descended. Each step creaked under my weight, mixing with the distant drip of water and the faint hum of electrical lines in the walls. The stairwell descended 5 flights before emptying into a low-ceilinged sub-basement. My light swept reveals rows of metal grates over shallow pits. Outside each grate, yellow labels marked biohazard, hold pending, coroner's evidence. The smell hit me then, sour metal and disinfectant, a scent that froze my spine. I scanned the room for the deputies but found only empty carts on wheels and overturned chairs like casualties of a long-ago struggle. At the far wall, a bank of lockers stood rusted shut. On one, the paint peeled to show the same interlocking triangle symbol from the key. My breath seized. I slid the folder from my jacket and laid it atop the locker. Underneath, etched in red, were words I didn't want to know. Locked away so you'd forget. The locker's handle resisted my tug until I pressed the key against a matching slot beneath the latch. The mechanism clicked, and the locker door swung open onto darkness. I hesitated, heart slamming against ribs. Inside lay only shadow until I trained my flashlight deeper, revealing a single object. A manicured, gloved hand. An investment bank's leather glove, pristine white. It lay beside a stack of patient charts bound by tarnished clips. I flicked through them. None were labeled Yan Lee. Instead, they bore names of precinct officers who died by line-of-duty accidents or unreported collisions. My gulp echoed wide in the concrete chamber. The glove twitched at my touch. I yanked back, Major snarled, hackles raised. The glove lay still again. I pressed deeper, rifling the charts. Each file contained scans of officers who'd vanished months after serving at Carmichael Way. Never found, never accounted for. Names I recognized, colleagues whose faces I'd passed in the hallways. Panic blossomed. I slammed the locker closed and slammed my fist on the recessed keypad to lock it. The metal clang reverberated through the pit-filled floor, and I spun to run. But the sub-basement's single exit door swung shut on its own, sealing us in darkness. My flashlight flickered once, then died, leaving me in pitch black. I fumbled at my belt for the backup torch. Major brushed against me, warm fur a faint comfort. I clicked it on, dim but enough. We stood in a pool of yellowed light. The echo of the locker's door closing still hung in the air. Then, from deep within the gloom, a voice rasped, muffled, "You found it." My heart vaulted. I pressed my back against the wall, breath shallow. "Who's there?" I called, voice trembling. The speaker stepped into the beam, a silhouette clothed in a dark uniform, face hidden behind a surgical mask. The eyes were impossibly familiar, liquid and empty. The same glazed serenity I'd seen in Yan Li's post-mortem photo. He bowed his head and said in a calm, rasping whisper, "Now, you must remember." The light snapped off as my backup torch clicked false. Darkness swallowed me. Major barked, echoing in the black. I realized the folder, my proof, was gone from my arm. My throat burned as the voice drifted above me. "Until you remember, the door will stay closed." Footsteps receded into the darkness. My blood ran cold as I juggled my radio, only to find it dead weight in my hand. The last thing I felt was Major's muzzle pressing against my palm, then a distant click. The locker above opening once more, and a whisper so close I could have been the one speaking. "Help me find the way out." I fumbled along the concrete wall, sweeping my flashlight beam until I found the latch on the exit door. My fingers slipped on the cold metal, slick with condensation, and I cursed under my breath. Major circled beside me, low whine in his throat, nose pressed to the ground. I kissed the leather of his collar. "Come on, boy," I rasped. "We're almost there." The door swung open with a groan, and I blinked against the harsh white light of the stairwell above. My heart seized as I realized the stairwell had shifted. These steps led upward, but the landing at the top was not the dispatch center. Instead, I stood in the foyer of the ramshackle Carmichael Way house, the very apartment where it all started. The hallway light overhead buzzed, yellow and familiar. Rainwater dripped from the hole in the ceiling onto the threadbare rug. I stepped forward as memories crashed in. Major at my side, me firing into the doorframe, her silhouette backlit by the patio light, the echo of her shriek. But this wasn't a memory. It was a looped projection, a twisted echo of that night. The front door slammed behind us, yet no wind blew. I pressed my back against the wall, scanning the apartment's wreckage. Furniture, overturned, blood smears half washed by rain. The closet door stood ajar at the far end of the hall. I whispered, "No turning back." Major growled approval. Together, we advanced. Each footfall echoed like a heartbeat in my chest. Before we could reach the closet, a soft scuff behind me made me whirl. There, in the kitchen doorway, stood the hooded figure, no longer masked, the face peeled back to reveal my own eyes, hollowed with guilt. My throat clenched. I pressed my hand over my mouth, stifling a scream. The figure raised a trembling finger and pointed at the closet door. I understood. This was the final test. I nodded, voice caught in my chest. I remember. My boots carried me across the living room. I could taste blood and rust in the air. The closet door swung open on its own, revealing a spiral staircase descending into darkness. I hesitated only a moment before stepping inside, Major at my heels. The spiral collapsed into a circular chamber painted white, pristine, unreal. In the center, a solitary chair faced a projection screen. I blinked at the rows of framed case files hung like trophies on the walls, portraits of victims I'd tried and failed to save. The elderly woman at Lavender Drive, the teenage girl by the fence, the man in the middle of I-5. But the largest frame at the far end held one photo. Yan Li in her hospital gown, eyes open, staring directly at me. I felt tears sting as I recognized the moment she whispered through the static, "Help me find the way out." The hooded figure stepped forward and peeled back its hood. My face once more, but softer, unscarred. Traces of the man I used to be. It spoke in my own voice, calm and steady. "You abandoned me." Major growled. I dropped to my knees. "I'm sorry," I choked. "I did everything I could." The figure's expression didn't change. "You left me in the dark." Behind me, the projection flickered. My own actions on loop, warnings fired, Major lunging, her collapsing. Each moment repeated without mercy. I wiped my sleeve across my eyes and stood. "Then help me," I said, voice echoing off the white walls. "Tell me what to do." The screen glowed red. A single line of text appeared. "Unseen corridor. Find the truth." I turned, seeing another door in the wall I'd missed, metal unmarked. I slid the wooden key into its slot. The door swung inward into a narrow hallway lined with mirrors. I followed my reflection until I reached the end, where the final mirror stood shattered. My hand trembled as I touched the broken glass. The shards reflected not my face, but hers. Yan Li, tears streaming down her cheeks, staring at me with accusation and sorrow. I knelt before the mirror and whispered, "I remember now." The shards melted away like smoke, revealing a doorway lit by dawn. Beyond it, rain-sodden streets and uniformed deputies rushing in. I felt Major nudge my hand. We stood, turned, and stepped through together. I emerged into the dispatch center foyer, real this time, fluorescent lights humming overhead, deputies rushing toward the stairwell. I dropped the key on the floor between us. Captain Jennings appeared at my side, eyes wide. "Are you all right?" he asked. I nodded, breath trembling. "She's alive," I said. "Yan Li survived." He glanced at Major, then back to me. "What do you mean?" I crouched and scooped up the wooden key. "I lost her file, thought she died. They buried the records. But she lived. And she's still out there, trapped in a system that forgot her." Jennings' face paled as realization dawned. I stood, voice firm. "We correct this. We send a unit to Carmichael Way. Check every survivor, every sealed record. We find her." He nodded shakily. Behind me, the hooded figure stood in the glass partition's reflection. No face, only a silhouette. I turned to see nothing but empty air. My heart thundered as I realized the truth. It wasn't a vengeful spirit or a technical hack. It was my own conscience manifest, demanding reparation. I picked up the key and slipped it into my pocket. Outside, the storm had passed. The first rays of dawn filtered through rain-streaked glass. Major licked my hand. I inhaled the crisp air, tasting the promise of daylight. I exhaled, resolve solidifying in my chest. The door to the dispatch center opened, and I walked through it, ready to finish what I started, ready to answer for every call I left unanswered. But as I crossed the threshold, I felt her voice behind me, soft as a breeze. "Will you remember me now?" I paused, hand on the doorknob, and whispered back, "I will." Yet, as the door clicked shut, her question still lingered in the empty hallway, and I realized the hardest part was still to come. I pull the cruiser into its stall just past midnight, the engine ticking as it cools. My shoulders ache from the weight of the day's uniform, the Kevlar vest, the radio mic clipped to my chest that still seems to vibrate with echoes of frantic voices. I step out onto the asphalt, the cold sting of Florida night air surprising me. Humid, yes, but somehow sharper in the dark. The precinct's fluorescent lights bleed onto the pavement, reminding me I'm not at home where my daughter's nightlight would be waiting. Not yet. Inside the station, the hallway stretches ahead like a tunnel of muted echoes. Distant footsteps, an answering machine flickering beside the sergeant's office, coffee machines burping out their last drip. I'm halfway to the locker room when my radio crackles, barely audible over the hum. Unit 17, Code 2, welfare check requested at 320 Elmwood Avenue. Possible mental health subject, dispatch out. The words hang in the stale air, routine on paper but never in practice. Elmwood Avenue. Tucked into a cluster of cheap apartments that line a canal I've never actually seen because I've never had reason to. Kitchenware rattles inside, laundry hangs limp from balconies, and a broken street lamp throws one hell of a shadow near number 7. I jangle my keys, heart ticking up from its steady beat. My mind flips through the checklist. Medical backup, crisis intervention if needed, non-lethal options. I remind myself I volunteered, because someone has to be there when the professionals worry it's too late. I catch my reflection in the tinted cruiser window as I shrug on the vest again. 3 sizes too big on me, baggy around the ribs. My face is a road map of years on patrol, thin lines around the eyes, a permanent crease between my brows. I haven't shaved since Tuesday. Phone buzzes in my pocket. My wife texting, "Don't be too late, you promised." I eye the message, thumb hovering over read. I don't reply. Not yet. It'd be a lie to say I'm not thinking of her and our 6-year-old tucked in their beds, dreaming while I chase ghosts in a fluorescent hallway. The drive is 5 minutes. Too short to gather courage, too long to talk myself out of the ride. Headlights cut through cloud-streaked sky, water pooling in old tire ruts along the roadside. Rain earlier made the road slick. I remember wiping a bead of water off the windshield as I passed a billboard advertising burger deals. Some things never change. At the corner, I spot number 7. A narrow porch light, bulbs swaying in the breeze, a potted palm that looks half dead. The evening stillness is thick. No car idling in the lot, no neighbor standing on the balcony. I kill the engine and step out. My boots make soft thumps against the asphalt. I grab my flashlight, not for illumination as much as to feel its weight in my hand. The beam catches the peeling paint on the door, the warped welcome mat littered with cigarette butts. I hit the button on my radio. "Dispatch, this is Unit 17 on location. Welfare check for Sydney Wilson, 33, apartment 7. I'll try contact." "Copy, Unit 17. Backup ETA 2 minutes." It's a procedural courtesy. I nod to myself. Okay, 2 minutes. Plenty of time to knock and be gone if nothing's wrong. Heart thudding, I walk to the door and rap my knuckles against the wood. 1, 2. I wait 4 seconds between knocks. Boots shuffle inside. I knock again. My voice, soft but firm. "Fairfax County Police. Open up, please. Are you all right?" Silence. The only answer is the distant hum of an air conditioner and the faint drip of water somewhere deep in the building's plumbing. Another knock, then a pause. 2 minutes feel like hours. I glance left and right, expecting to see someone creeping behind me, but there's only flickering yellow light through the hallway window. The wind rattles the frames, or maybe a loose shutter. I lean close, ear to the door, catching the thump of my pulse. Footsteps in the corridor, Someone's approaching, I think, but it could be my mind playing tricks. I grip the flashlight tighter. I should radio in any second. Confirm backup is on the way. But something stops me. The intimacy of the pause, the weight of not knowing. "Miss Wilson," I say quietly, "if you can hear me, please open the door. We have a welfare check for you." I tap shack knuckle on metal once more. The door shifts, just a hair. My breath catches. I'm trained to react calmly, to assess threat. But trained doesn't mean emotionless. A crack widens, and through the sliver I see a pale face, eyes too wide and too still to be civil. Skin stretched tight around cheekbones, hair unkempt, clothes stained. My mind surges. Is she suffering? Is this agitation or something deeper snapping at the edges? Before I can speak, the door creaks wider, slow, deliberate. The hallway light inside is dim, yellowed, casting long shadows over peeling wallpaper. The apartment behind her yawns like a cave. I take a step back, flashlight raised but level, non-threatening. "Officer Reed," I say, voice steadier than I feel. "I'm here at the request of your counselor. They say you've been in crisis." She tilts her head, lips parting in a half-smile that doesn't reach her eyes. No words. A silence that feels alive and hungry. The air smells faintly of bleach and something rotten, maybe a spoiled carton of milk in the kitchen sink. My radio crackles again. Unit 17, backup, has 2 minutes out. I don't answer. She steps aside, fingers brushing the doorframe. I notice her knuckles, white, tense, like she expects me to charge in. Every muscle in her arm tenses, but she stands perfectly still. I imagine what's inside, a flurry of emotion, battling a wall of fear. Maybe it's psychosis pushing her to a corner. Maybe it's that flash of desperation that makes us all human. All I know is that at this moment, I have to decide. Push in and risk violation, or wait and risk harm. I take another breath. "Ma'am, may I come in?" I ask, voice low. No flourish, no dramatic pause. Just a direct question. The door hovers between closed and open. Her eyes drift to my radio clipped at my shoulder, then back to my face. Something in her gaze twists, like she's weighing trust and contempt on a blade's edge. The world narrows. I can feel the hallway's pressure behind me, the building settling, the night breathing. My hand dips toward my taser holster more out of habit than intent. 2 minutes until backup. 2 pulse-thundering minutes. The final inch of light disappears as the door swings shut, cutting me off from the outside world. I stand in the dark, flashlight beam bouncing over a cluttered hallway. Discarded shoes, a coat rack bent under weight, a stray sock, a child's toy in the corner, an abandoned figurine camera under a layer of dust. My stomach tightens. Did she slam it? Or did she let it close softly, inviting me into a trap of her own making? I press my shoulder against the door and push gently. It yawns inward, revealing the threshold. The apartment beyond feels empty and full of echoes, of words she won't speak, of threats hanging unsaid. I step forward. The door clicks behind me. The click is muffled but final. I hear the latch drop. I flash the light across the entryway. A narrow foyer with faded linoleum, a single kitchen light flickering at the far end. Something shifts in the beam. A photo frame on a console table, a woman's scratched-out face, an overturned chair, furniture shoved aside, like someone left in a hurry or was forced into flight. My tongue catches against the roof of my mouth. Instinct yells something's wrong, but it's silent, too silent. Only distant thunder rumbles through the walls. I swallow. "Miss Wilson," I call, each syllable echoing back. No answer, just the hum of the bulbs overhead. My radio is silent. Backup hasn't arrived yet. I step further inside, the floorboards groaning under my weight. The shadows seem to watch me, waiting for a misstep. My flashlight illuminates a trail of footprints across the dusty linoleum. Small, almost childlike, heading toward the kitchen. I follow, breathing shallow, heart drumming so loud I half expect her to hear it. The footprints end at a low cabinet door, cracked open as though someone reached in and pulled something heavy free. A dark smear across the floor leads into the living room. I raise my radio. Unit 17 to dispatch. Suspect's apartment is empty, signs of struggle inside, requesting immediate backup. My voice wavers, but I hold it steady. No response. The console must be broken or the signal lost in these thick walls. I move toward the living room door, just one more step, when I hear it. A soft, dragging sound from the bedroom down the hall. Something heavy, moving, a breath, and then it stops. I freeze, flashlight trained on the open doorway, darkness beyond. My hand drifts to my holster. 2 seconds pass. 5. A soft scrape, then nothing. I swallow and take a single step forward, the beam slicing through the gloom. And just as I edge toward the threshold, the light catches something in the corner of the room. A pale hand, fingertips curled around the edge of the mattress. It trembles once, then stills. My breath hitches. I raise my voice, low, calm, pleading, "Miss Wilson, if you're hurt, please show yourself." Silence. Then a soft thud behind me, the front door slamming shut. I whirl around. The apartment plunges into darkness as the kitchen light blinks out in a static flicker. Rain pounds the windows. And in that moment, just before I sprint for the bedroom, every instinct in me is screaming that I stepped right into her world, and she's already been waiting. I slip my hand off the doorknob and drop into a low crouch, every nerve alive. The hallway's stale air presses against my lungs as I inch forward, flashlight beam carving through the darkness. My footsteps are silent on the linoleum, but I can feel my boots leaving faint imprints in the dust. The thud of my heartbeat is louder than any thought. Find her, get back up, stay alive. The living room yawns before me, empty chairs shoved aside, a TV screen cracked and dark. Shadows pool in every corner. I sweep the beam left, nothing. Right, nothing. Then, at the far wall, a smear of something dark soaks into the carpet, leading toward the kitchen. I trace it with my light, following a path that winds around a toppled coffee table and ends at the threshold. My radio lies forgotten on the floor, dead batteries, or maybe no signal. I press the button anyway. Unit 17 to dispatch, but only static. A reminder that here, in this cocoon of peeling paint and half-lit bulbs, I am utterly alone until they arrive. 2 more minutes, or maybe 5, depending on how long it took to clear the pileup. I step over the threshold into the kitchen. The floor tilts under me, grease or water slicked across the linoleum. My flashlight illuminates the stove's burners, each stained with dried spills, the sink piled high with dishes, and then a handprint, impossible high, smeared against the wall above the counter. Pale as bone, fingertips splayed in terror. Not her left hand, this is a child's slender fingers, wrist bent at an unnatural angle. My breath hitches. 1,000 questions flood my mind. Why a child? Why here? I bend closer, the smell of bleach and crap so strong it curls around my tongue. I lift the hem of my vest to unclasp my body camera. Did it start? I feel for the lens, but it's cold, hard, no red light. I slap it on, hoping it engaged. Then, a soft scrape behind me. My head whips around. The hallway door creaks open a crack, just enough for a sliver of light from the building's corridor to cut across the floor. Footsteps shuffle outside. Back up? I radio again, but there's only that maddening static. I close the gap to the door and press my ear to it. Voices, low. A murmured conversation or argument. Two sets of footsteps moving apart, one receding down the hall, the other stopping by apartment 6. My pulse surges. I press my shoulder against the door and force it open a crack. Down the hall, in the faint yellow glow under 6's door, I see two figures, one small, hunched, a child, the other larger, stooped. Both silhouettes tremble. I draw in a breath. Fairfax County Police, I whisper, voice firm. Show yourself. The larger figure steps forward. An older man, shoulders rounded, eyes wide in the half-light. He wears pajamas stained dark around the chest. He tilts his head, mouth opening and closing like a fish. You shouldn't be here, he rasps. The child figure behind him shifts, stamping small feet, but never steps into the light. I force the door wider, light spilling into the corridor. Sir, I need your help. Please, step back. The man shrinks, hands raised as though warding me off. They'll come, he says, staring down the hallway. They never leave. My spine stiffens. Who? What? The child figure shunts sideways, melting deeper into shadow. I take another step forward, then a sudden slam behind me. My light wavers. The apartment's door, behind me, has slammed shut. My heart plummets. I barely catch the officer's reflection in the hallway window, wide eyes a deadlock between fight and flight. I spin back, heavy foot falls in the living room. My flashlight illuminates just the edge of the bedroom door. The dark smear leads on. My mouth dries. I inhale, hunkering down, voice a rasp. Miss Wilson, if you're here, help me. Silence, then a soft giggle, a small hollow sound that echoes unnaturally in the narrow hallway. It's the child's voice, louder now, close. Tiny boots pad against the floor outside my peripheral vision. I whip the beam around. Nothing, just the filthy wall, chipped paint, and that handprint I passed. I realize with a cold shock that I'm the one trapped, that the apartment has become a maze of terror all its own. I press back toward the living room, flashlight carving a path through gloom. But before I can reach the safety of the foyer, the hallway light behind me flickers and dies with a sputter. Darkness swallows me. My radio crackles. A distant voice. Unit 17, respond. But it's routed through some distant talk group, not dispatch. My own calls vanish in the ether. The silence that follows rings louder. A soft, dragging sound behind me. My pulse races. I pivot, shining the beam down the hallway toward apartment 7. The kitchen door stands ajar, and in its frame I see a shape. The woman, Miss Wilson, or something that wears her as a mask. She tilts her head, awareness blooming in her eyes. Cold, brilliant. Fingers twitch at her sides, as if claws wait to bloom. I swallow, hand creeping toward my holstered taser. I know it's useless in darkness that bends around corners. I force myself to speak, voice tight. Sydney, I'm here to help. The name tastes wrong in my mouth, charged with too many unknowns. She tilts her head again, lips parting slightly in a soundless laugh. Then she steps forward, one slow, purposeful footfall. Her shadow swallowing the hallway light. I stumble back, beam dancing across overturned furniture and the cracked photo frame with the scratched-out face. My flashlight flickers, momentary blackout, then snaps back, revealing nothing. She's vanished. Behind me, the corkboard on the wall rattles. Single pushpin clatters to the floor. I kneel to pick it up, eyes scanning the thread of crimson on its head. Not blood? Paint? Rust? I don't know. But the clap of footsteps returns, heavy and deliberate, coming from the front door. I scramble to my feet, heart pounding. My head spins with questions I have no time to answer. Where is she? Who else is here? Will backup ever arrive? The corridor yawns before me, stretching into inky blackness. I'm caught between two dark doors, one leading back to the foyer and the possibility of escape, the other into the nightmare of the bedroom. I swallow the lump in my throat, jaw set. There's only one direction, forward. My boots hit the linoleum in a staccato rhythm. Boots and flashlight beam leading me toward the bedroom door, toward the thing that stole her voice and borrowed her face. The door's edge splinters under my grip. I pull it open and stop. The room is empty, nothing but overturned furniture and shards of glass glittering in the lamp's half-life. Yet the window is wide open, curtains twisted as if something large fled through. Rain lashes in, cold wind biting at my neck. On the sill, a single muddy footprint. I swallow and step inside, following the print to the center of the floor. Mud, water, but also, here, something soft. I kneel and touch it, a tuft of blonde hair. My breath hitches. I close my eyes, feeling the weight of every forgotten call, every life lost to static, every second I was too slow. And then a whisper, barely more than a breath. Help me. I snap my head up, flashlight beam dancing across the ceiling. Silence. The window rattles in its frame. I rise, voice low, determined. I'm here. But the air answers only with the distant roar of thunder, and I realize the only thing in this room is me, and the thing I thought I'd left behind. I hesitate only a fraction of a second before stepping back through the open window, rain beating my back like a warning. The world outside the bedroom rushes in, an alleyway slick with puddles, the distant thrum of engines on Elmwood Avenue, a single street lamp wavering in the wind. I twist to peer through the broken pane. No sign of her silhouette disappearing into the night. No hint of a path beyond the concrete ledge. Just endless dark, punctuated by the staccato flash of lightning. My vest pulls at my shoulders as I climb through, boots landing on the wet brick ledge with a muted thud. The window frame rocks under my weight, wood splintering where it gave way. Inside, the bedroom floor is cold and still. Out here, the night is alive in angry shouts. I glance over my shoulder. The apartment's facade seems to convulse in the storm's breath, peeling paint rippling like skin. And somewhere inside, a heartbeat thrums in the walls. A sudden noise, metal scraping against metal, spikes my spine. I whip around. At the ground below, half hidden by shadow, the front door swings on its hinges, opened by no breeze I can feel. The threshold yawns like a mouth. My radio lies useless behind me. Dispatch is a lifeline I've severed myself. No backup will come until I secure her, until I call it in. But in this place, voices die on the static. I wait my stance, jump down and chase or slip back inside and close the door. The alley is only 10 feet below the window, but bricks are slick with rain. My heart pounds, each beat a warning that I'm out of my element, a predator caught above ground. But she's out there. I can't lose that tuft of hair, that echo of a child's plea. I clench my jaw and step off the ledge. Gravity hurls me downward for a heartbeat too long. I land in a crouch against the wet brick sidewalk, boots skidding to a stop. Pain flares in my ankle but doesn't stop me. I sprint toward the street, rain streaming down my face, flashlight clasped in one hand, other hand brushing my jacket where my badge rides. Streetlight flickers overhead. Water splashes underfoot, soaking through the leather soles of my boots. I squint into the dark. Windows across from the apartment building show no movement, no silhouettes peering down. It's as though the entire complex has gone silent, swallowed by the storm. I swing and open a gate leading to a narrow side path between buildings. Too tight for cars, just wide enough for one person to squeeze through. I fumble the flashlight strap around my wrist and switch to high beam. Its cone cuts through the downpour, catching droplets like falling stars. Footsteps echo behind me. Someone's following. I whirl, beam searching the entrance to the alley. Nothing but a tangle of garbage bins and a stray cat that darts away, fur soaked and eyes glowing. I exhale and push on. The path bends sharply to the left, leading behind the apartments. The drizzle turns into a sheet as I press forward, boots plopping in shallow pools. Trash rustles in the wind. I pass doors marked fire exit that look too flimsy to hold anyone in. Paint peels off them. Hinges rusted. Each step echoes like a countdown. I catch sight of footprints, scrawny, child-sized, leading away from one door, toward a chain-link fence with a jagged gap. Even in this storm, the prints are fresh, edges crisp in the mud. I follow them through the gap, clothes clinging to me. On the other side is a small courtyard, an asphalt patch encircled by hedges dyed yellow in street lamp glow. A rusty jungle gym sits at its center, metal bars slick with rain. Beneath it, the ground is churned soil, more footprints. I bend to study them. Child's shoe, maybe size 3 or 4. Tread pattern I've seen on cheap department store sneakers. There's another set beside them, larger, boot-printed, the same style I wear, hers and mine. But I've only made footprints inside the apartment. I've never set foot here until seconds ago. Blood pumps in my ears. I step forward, flashlight sweeping over the jungle gym, empty. No sign of a child, no woman, just the relentless storm. I press the beam through the hedges, dense enough to obscure vision, and realize there's an opening on the right, low enough for someone to crawl under. The ground slopes down, weeds flattened under weight. I squeeze through the gap, brambles tearing at my uniform. Beyond, a back alley spools out behind the next block. A chain-link fence separates it from the canal, dark water yawning beyond. I hear the water lapping against concrete, a soft but constant hiss. The fence has a gap torn along the bottom, enough for a small person to edge through. The child's footprints lead straight to it. I kneel and press my palm against the mud under the gap. There, a smear of blonde hair and what looks like dried blood. A chill that has nothing to do with the rain freezes my spine. I reach for my radio, hitting the mic. "Dispatch, this is Unit 17. A crackle, then a click. My battery's gone dead. I glance at the empty device and curse under my breath. This is a hole in my lifeline I can't repair. I jam it back into my pocket. The footprints vanish on the other side of the fence. Heart hammering. I climb through, careful of rusty barbs. Water from the canal laps at my knees as I stand in 5 inches of murky current. A smell of rot and algae assaults my nose. I shine the flashlight along the bank, debris, discarded bottles, a torn shoe. Then, there. A small handprint, pressed wet into the concrete edge where the water meets land. A bare footprint. I feel bile rise, but force myself to step forward. Every muscle in my body seizes as I scan the horizon. Garbage scuttles in the water. Something flutters under the surface. The clouded canal is too black to see more than a few inches into it. Lightning forks across the sky, revealing the far bank. A narrow path and then darkness beyond, but no movement yet. I take a breath and step through the canal, cold water soaking through my trousers up to mid-thigh. Each step sends ripples outward, distorting reflections of streetlights above. Halfway across, a groan echoes from somewhere behind me. I whirl, beam swinging wildly, but only mud and the fence I just cleared. My heart kicks up a notch. Was it wind, a creature, or her? I steel myself and wade on. Finally, I reach the opposite bank. Mud gives way under my boot, sucking at my weight, but I pull my legs free and stagger forward. Footprints reappear on the crushed sand path. Hers, and now another set, heavier, booted, foreshortened. I follow them uphill toward a set of wooden steps leading to a drainage culvert beneath the train tracks. The boards are slick with moss and rain. Each step creaks. I pause at the top. Beneath, the darkness yawns, a tunnel mouth wide enough for a child. I swing the flashlight inside. The walls are lined with broken concrete, water dripping steadily. In the middle, ankle-deep water flows out of the darkness. I shine toward the far end, a pinpoint of light, maybe daylight filtering through the next side. But halfway there, something shifts in the beam. A dark figure retreats into the tunnel. Not her mask of Sydney Wilson, but a young girl shape hunched over. Curly hair plastered to her head, a dress sodden and gray. She turns her head, eyes hollow, face streaked with tears and dirt. "Hey," I shout softly, voice echoing. "It's okay, I'm here to help." The tunnel amplifies my words. She stands motionless. I take a step forward, then a sudden jolt. Something brushes against my leg. My flashlight drops to the floor, beam dancing across the wall. I snatch it up, heart racing, and see her hand brushing mine as she steps past, moving away into deeper darkness. I sprint after her. Splashing through the muck, I reach a fork in the tunnel. One path rises slightly to a rusted grate, the other dips into deeper gloom. Her footprints head left. I follow, breath staccato. The light pinpricks grow fainter. Water rises to mid-calf. The air smells of mildew and decay. Rat squeaks echo off walls. Distant, a thunderous rumble of a train passing overhead. I call again, "Little girl, please, stay still." My voice cracks. She glances back, a pale silhouette, and I catch a glimpse of her eyes reflecting light, wide and pleading. Then she darts forward, slipping on the mold-slick concrete, toppling into the water with a shriek that echoes like a scream underwater. My stomach lurches. Without thinking, I dive after her. The water's cold beyond reason. I grab her by the arm, yanking her upward. She lies limp in my grasp, soaked and shivering, hair plastered over her face, silent. Adrenaline surges. I cradle her against my chest, scanning for more movement. The only sound is water dripping from pipes above and our breathing. The pinprick of light at the tunnel's end grows brighter. I push us forward, stumbling through the muck. The ground levels and suddenly we're under the open sky, the tunnel mouth sloping into a grassy embankment. She lifts her head, eyes unfocused, then finds mine, wide, afraid. I say nothing. I just keep moving, ducking under the chain-link barrier that borders the tracks. Rain drives into our faces. Beyond the fence is the street again, Lambert Road. A patrol car idles, lights off. I stumble forward, calling on the radio again. This time, a crackle and a voice. "Unit 17, are you okay?" It's dispatch. My relief is so overwhelming I almost drop her. "I have a juvenile, rescued from the drainage tunnel," I rasp. "I need medics and backup to 320 Elmwood Avenue, East Side Alley." Headlights snap on. 2 officers jump out and rush toward me. I hold the child close as they approach. She flinches, pressing into my chest. I sweep the flashlight away and shine it in their direction. Identify myself and my badge. They call for medics while one crouches beside me, asking gently, "Ma'am, you're safe now." She looks up at him with tear-filled eyes, then to me. I kneel and speak softly. "You're safe. You're safe." The words feel empty, but she nods. Rain pelts us as sirens wail in the distance. I stand, lifting her into the arms of the medic who arrives. I feel every muscle tremble. My body shakes from cold, adrenaline, relief, and guilt that it took so long to find her. Lightning forks overhead as the tunnel mouth behind us gapes like an open wound leading back to darkness. They lead us away. I stay just long enough to watch her vanish into the ambulance, then turn back toward the ruins of Elmwood Avenue, toward the apartment with the scratched-out photograph and the twisted halls. Somewhere inside, the story of Sydney Wilson waits, a story I've only just begun to unravel. I raise my radio. Dispatch, Unit 17 clear. Requesting transport back to station. There's static. Then finally, copy that, Unit 17. My voice is low, ragged. I don't mention the woman or the child's laugh that still echoes in my mind. I just stand in the rain, letting it wash over me, wondering which darkness comes home with me tonight. I press my shoulder against the wet brick and haul myself upright, calves burning as I steadied in the pitch-black alley. The shudder of approaching sirens doesn't ease my pulse. It only reminds me how close I came to losing her forever. 2 officers break through the rain-slick haze and rush to my side, slippers of flashlight beams, voices clipped into the night. Their parka hoods dripping, they kneel beside me and call to the little girl, but she's already curled against my chest, shivering, eyes wide with fear and relief. I hold her tighter, whispering a steady mantra. You're safe. You're safe. Overhead, the rain intensifies, hammering our backs in a frantic applause. The ambulance door swings open, and medics spill out into the downpour, their flashlights and gurney lights carving a halo in the storm. I hand her over with gentle insistence to one of them, his face solemn, hands tender, while the other officer gathers my radio and checks my stability. I stay rooted until they wheel her away, until her small boots clatter on the asphalt beyond the flood of lights and the storm's roar. Only then do I allow myself to breathe. The drive back to the station is a blur of blue lights and swirling reflections on the pavement. My uniform is soaked through, badge gleaming like a beacon, pulsing with every flash of the strobes. I sit in the cruiser's back seat, helmet resting on my lap, chest rising and falling too fast to count. My radio chirps with calls, routine welfare checks, false alarms, another pileup that needs attention, but I'm deaf to it, disconnected by adrenaline and the echo of that child's whisper. Help me. I close my eyes and see Sydney Wilson's face, pale and blank, behind the locked door. I see those footprints in the jungle gym, the torn photo of a smiling woman with her years scratched away. I see the child's handprint smeared on the countertop. The memory churns like water in the canal beneath my boots. I push the door open at headquarters and step into the fluorescent corridor, water dripping from my hair onto the scuffed linoleum. Dispatchers pause, pens hovering in midair. The sergeant emerges from his office, an unmarked door hanging ajar, and studies me with tired, sober eyes. He doesn't ask questions, he doesn't need to. I nod once and make my way to the locker room. The smell of old coffee, lockers, and body odor greets me. I peel off my vest and unclip my radio, setting them on the bench as if they'll burn through my skin if left on. The body camera, still blinking red, is the last to come off. I stare at the footage indicator, no recording symbol, no blinking memory. I press the small button. Nothing. A cold pit opens in my chest. I thought I turned it on. I thought it would capture everything. In the shower stall, I let the scalding water wash away the rain and the mud and the adrenaline, but not the fear. My legs tremble as the hot jet pummels my back. I shut my eyes and feel the water sluice across my weary face. I think of the tunnel's dank air, the child's sobbing gasps for breath, her hand slipping from mine as I dragged her free. I think of the heavier footprints trailing behind her, the man in pajamas in apartment 6, his warning, "They never leave," etched into my mind. Who else was there? Who else did Sydney know? The faucet rattles, steam billows, and around me, the world blurs. Dressed in a fresh uniform, I step into the sergeant's office. He closes the door behind me. On his desk sits the intake report. Subject, Sydney Wilson. Age, 33. History, one prior welfare check 2 weeks ago. Found agitated, but no immediate risk. Beneath it, scribbled in red ink, is a note. Child, possible involvement. He slides it to me. I read the words 4 times. My stomach knots. 2 weeks ago, when Sydney's counselor flagged her, no mention of a child. Who filed that note? Who saw the little girl before I did? He looks at me, voice low. You found the girl in the drainage tunnel? I nod. He exhales, runs a hand through his thinning hair. But we have no record of a missing child. No Amber Alert, nothing. The silence stretches. Outside, rain drums the window like impatient fingers. I realize with a slow, sinking dread that no report was ever made. Not by the neighbors, not by Sydney's counselor, not by dispatch. The girl was invisible to the system until I yanked her into the light. He leans forward. We need to file a supplemental. This child, the tunnel, the cracked window, and I need your statement. I close my eyes, heart pounding, and picture the concrete walls of that tunnel, the sickly yellow light, the girl's hollow eyes. I picture Sydney turning the lock on that door. I picture that first call in the 911 center, a panic room prank, or maybe a genuine cry that died in the static. I straighten and meet his gaze. Yes, sir. My voice is steady. Outside, thunder rumbles like a distant train. But inside, my own storm is just beginning. And I know the real darkness isn't the night or the alley or the canal. It's the unanswered questions, the lives we almost lose, and the ones we never see coming. And in the quiet after the rain, I feel the soft echo of that child's plea, still reverberating in the silence. I sit back at my desk long after the sergeant's office goes silent. The fluorescent lamp overhead hums, its yellow glare pooling on the supplemental report I've just signed. Outside the window, the parking lot is empty except for my cruiser, its wet surface reflecting a lone streetlight. I press my thumb against the paper where I've written "no recording" next to "body cam malfunction," and the weight of that admission settles in my chest like a stone. Without footage, my words are all that stand between this night's events and the easy conclusion that it was all in my head. My radio crackles, a routine check-in from dispatch, then falls back into static. The lines feel thin, threadbare, vulnerable. I stare down the corridor at the locker room door, thinking how I never got to see Sydney Wilson's face again, how I never saw her in a cell or a hospital bed, or how the child's face, her face, will haunt me until someone explains where she came from. My phone buzzes, a text from the child welfare hotline. Officer Reed, please call us about the runaway juvenile. My stomach lurches. She's been officially reported now. Somebody, somewhere finally raised the alarm. I tap the notification open. No number, just a brief line. Urgent. 24-hour hold recommended. 800-555-2200. I stare at it, thinking of her in the ambulance, pale, trembling, the glint of tears in her eyes. And I realize I haven't asked her a single question beyond, "Are you hurt?" I haven't learned her name, how she ended up locked in a drainage tunnel under a storm-battered apartment. I haven't promised her anything except safety, and I'm not even sure I belong in that station anymore. I stand and grab my coat, slinging it over my shoulder. The sergeant's file cabinet clicks open and closed behind me. I don't slip into a patrol car. There are no stray calls left at this hour, but instead walk out of the precinct toward the lobby, where the evidence locker sits under a sign that reads, "Property of Fairfax County Police." The hallway lights dim as I pass, the station sleeping except for my own footsteps. I step through the double doors into the small foyer where the keycard locks hiss shut behind me. The evidence room is cold, windowless, and lit by a single bulb. I swipe my badge, the door unlatching with a metallic groan. Inside, shelves hold impounded backpacks, the roadside flares, and a few leftover confiscated weapons. But at the far end, I find the chain-link cage marked "Temporary Storage, Investigative Materials." The door is secured with 2 padlocks. I fumble the keys on my belt and unlock the first, then the second, feeling as though I'm stepping into forbidden territory. Inside the cage, I locate the small black box labeled "Traffic Citations, Pending Confirmation." I carry it out and flip through the tabs, mostly parking tickets and a dozen reports of petty theft. No sign of a recording unit. I realize there was never a box for body cams. They're programmed to upload automatically to a central server. So I turn away, about to leave, when something glints on the shelf below. A pile of recovered electronics, phones, chargers, a few bits of wire wrapped tightly. One untethered SSD stick lies among them. I pull it free. No label, no case number. My mind kicks into gear. Could this be from the apartment? Dropped by someone who needed to hide evidence? I slip it into my coat pocket. Outside, the station is silent. The only sound is the distant hum of HVAC and my own breathing. I lock the cage again, padlocks clicking into place just as firmly as my resolve to find the truth. I drive home without sirens. Rain has eased to a light drizzle, but the streets still glisten. My phone rings, a blocked number. I answer on speaker as I park in my driveway. "Officer Reed," I say. A crackle. Then the child's voice. Soft, quiet, close enough to feel against my ear. "Are you there?" My blood runs cold. "Yes," I say, voice steady but strained. "I'm here." "They're coming," she whispers. Then the line goes dead. I sit unmoving, the engine ticking as it cools, headlights fading. The air in my car feels too tight, too small. I press a thumb to the SSD in my pocket, thinking of Sydney's door snapping shut and that little girl's handprint on a countertop. I want to believe that call was a mistake, a prank, but I know better. I know how fear sounds on the line, how it curls around your spine and refuses to let go. Inside my house, my wife has left the porch light off. The front door is ajar, just enough for me to slip in, but I pause on the threshold. The hallway is dark, the carpet damp from yesterday's rain tracked in by my boots the night I missed supper. The kitchen clock reads 4:12 a.m. Too late for a welcome, too early for a good night. My daughter's nightlight glows at the end of the hall, the same small lamp I bought for her first night in that crib. It feels like a breach to turn it on now. Instead, I walk past and head to the living room, where I left my laptop open. A single browser window is up, the Fairfax County Police portal. I plug the SSD stick into USB. A hidden partition appears on the desktop. I click. A folder named Audio Recordings opens, full of files labeled with timestamps. One entry from last week has my call sign in brackets, but the timestamp doesn't match any incident. I click the most recent file, a 2-second clip. The waveform peaks in the middle, then trails off. I press play, static, a hollow thud, then a child's voice, distant at first. "Mister." It breaks, as though she's moving through water. My pulse skyrockets. I lean closer. Help. The word stretches out in a single, quavering note, as if the sound itself is pleading. My breath shakes against the keys. I hit pause. The clip ends. My head spins. Someone, somewhere on the force, has been recording calls off the books. Why? And for what purpose? I scroll. Next file, tagged 5 minutes later. I hit play. This time, I recognize the apartment number. Dispatch, you there? Elmwood Avenue, apartment 7. It's my own voice, strained. She's inside, doors locked. Then cut off. The file stops. The date is last Wednesday. 2 weeks ago, the night before Sydney's counselor flagged her. The night, I wasn't on duty. I sink onto the couch, the SSD clutched in my fist. My mind reels with possibilities. Did someone record welfare checks before dispatch? Was Sydney not the first to vanish into that tunnel? Who else knew about the child, about the footprints? I think of the man in pajamas and his warning. They never leave. He wasn't talking about Sydney. He was talking about whoever, or whatever, lived beneath Elmwood Avenue, collecting stories and voices in the dark. My daughter's nightlight flickers, as if responding to my sudden movement. I stand and switch on the lamp, its soft glow revealing her stuffed rabbit on the floor. I pick it up gingerly, and it humbles me. How easily innocence can slip away. The rabbit's whiskers stand at odd angles, like it's seen something terrible. I set it on the coffee table and stare at the door, wondering if I should wake my wife, confess the entire night's ordeal. But what would I say? I rescued a girl from a storm drain and discovered an underground archive of secret recordings by a rogue dispatcher. It would sound insane. I plug the SSD into my personal laptop and create a folder on the desktop. Elmwood Evidence. I transfer audio files, careful not to erase the originals. Each file is a fragment, 2 seconds, 8 seconds, 15 seconds, of calls never logged in my official report. My mind loops, static, thud, child's voice. If I stitch them together, maybe I can reconstruct the night she vanished. Maybe I can track her voice through the pipes and conduits that snake under the street. Time slips away. The first light of dawn creeps through my curtains, pale and insistent. I realize I haven't slept or eaten. Every muscle aches, but adrenaline and obsession drive me. I save the last file. A minute of continuous recording, labeled simply 911 Elmwood. I lie on the couch, eyes stinging, headphones on, press play, hold tone, distant thunder. Male voice, Unit 17? Female sob. Please, help. Line crackles, then my own voice, calm. Stay on the line, backup's coming. Then 2 voices overlap, one muffled, one urgent, clipping and warping. The last sound is a child's laughter, soft and hollow, trailing off into static. The recording stops. I pull off the headphones and sit in silence. The laptop's hum and the early morning bird calls beyond the window the only sounds. I rub my eyes. The clips are disjointed, incomplete, but they share one thing. They all lead back to Elmwood Avenue. Back to Sydney's door. Back to that tunnel and the child who doesn't belong on any missing persons list. I shut the laptop and stand. The rabbit's crooked ears watch me. I know what I have to do. Return to the scene. This time with a camera crew, proper clearance, and backup that doesn't depend on a faltering radio signal. I need fresh eyes on the evidence room, an IT specialist to trace who uploaded those files. I need the child welfare officers to interview that little girl herself. I need homicide to launch an inquiry into the unexplained recordings that someone thought were worth hiding. But first, I wipe the SSD clean of my fingerprints, slip it into an evidence envelope, and seal it with tape. I scrawl my badge number across the seal. I tuck the envelope into my inside jacket pocket, next to my phone and my badge. I step outside into the pale dawn, the air crisp, the ground still wet. The spent storm drains gurgle faintly in the gutter. As I head back to my cruiser, I glance at the apartment complex. Elmwood Avenue's weathered building stands quiet in the morning light. I feel the weight of unseen eyes behind every curtain. The memory of the door slamming, the splash of water in the tunnel. And in my pocket, the child's voice echoes still on that SSD. 2 seconds of desperate plea that won't let me rest until I face the darkness beneath. The day shift is arriving as I slide into the driver's seat. Another set of officers stands by the doors, chatting about mundane things. Broken water pipes, stray cats, the lunch truck schedule. They don't know what I know. But soon they will. I pull on my gloves, place the envelope on the passenger seat, and start the engine. I drive away slowly, leaving Elmwood Avenue behind, but I know it's never really behind me. It's right there in the dead air on the SSD, in the scratch of my pen by the sergeant's desk, in the flash of my badge catching the morning light. And as I head into the station, the child's whisper follows me. They're coming. The morning light streams harshly through the station's front windows as I step back into the bullpen, folding the evidence envelope carefully and tucking it into the inner breast pocket of my uniform coat. The familiar buzz of radios and click of keyboards greets me, but it all feels distant, as though I'm watching through a pane of glass. I slide into my desk chair, feeling the weight of the envelope against my chest, and power up my computer. Emails, shift change notes, pending reports, another day in the life. But nothing here reflects the secrets I carry. My sergeant appears without warning, leaning against the doorway with that knowing look officers give when they suspect you're holding back details. "Read," he says, voice low. "You filed the supplemental. Homicide wants to talk to you in an hour." I nod, heart tightening. An hour to prepare my face, my answers, my omissions. He pauses. "I saw dispatch logs, no missing child reports, before last night. You sure you got everything?" Only half of me wants to confess. The other half grips the envelope like a lifeline. "I did," I say. "There was nothing." He studies me, then gives a curt nod and walks away. I close my eyes and inhale. Nothing. Except the tunnel, the broken window, the woman's door, the child's voice, and 1,000 unanswered questions. The bullpen empties as shift change sweeps through. I rise and grab a cup of coffee from the pot cold on the counter. The first sip burns my tongue, but I don't mind. It jolts me awake to the day's reality. Deputy Carter passes by and nods, oblivious to the envelope hidden in my coat. He jokes about the lunch truck schedule. I half smile, but my mind is still underground, chasing shadows beneath Elmwood Avenue. I pore over the original welfare check report on my screen. The counselor's note, the entry time, the subject refused to open door remark. No mention of footprints, no child, no canal. Nothing. The new supplemental sits in my outbox, typed in terse language. Signs of disturbance inside. Evidence of forced entry. Possible involvement of a juvenile. Further investigation required. I hit send. It's official now. Whatever follows traces back to me. At 10 a.m., homicide arrives. Detective Vasquez and her partner, Garcia, carry themselves like storm clouds. Efficient, serious, unflappable. I escort them to the interview room, a narrow cell with 1 table and 2 chairs. They set up their recorder. I slide in across from them. Vasquez's eyes are sharp behind wire-rimmed glasses. Garcia leans back, arms crossed. Vasquez begins. "Officer Reed, we've reviewed your report and the supplemental. We have questions about the juvenile. No missing persons report existed for that child until after you found her in the tunnel. Can you explain?" My throat constricts. I could say I didn't know, that I assumed someone else had filed it. But the phone text told me differently. My eyes flick to the envelope on the table, but I keep my hands folded. I rescued her, I say. I believed she was a runaway or at risk. I thought a child welfare officer would file the report immediately. Vasquez nods slowly. Who else saw her? Did you speak to any neighbors? Any witnesses? The question stings. I spoke only to the man in apartment 6, a disheveled pajama-clad neighbor who warned me, they never leave. I never got his name. No, I admit. I was focused on getting her to medics. Garcia scribbles in his notebook. Vasquez leans forward. Officer, there's more. We received an anonymous tip, an SSD containing off-the-books audio recordings of unlogged calls at the Elmwood station. You're aware of this? My pulse quickens. The envelope in my coat feels hot. No, I say, voice steady. I don't know anything about that. She fixes me with a gaze that turns my insides cold. We'll be conducting a full audit of the station's call logs and network servers. Any deletion or undisclosed recordings will be grounds for obstruction. She stands, signaling the end. Garcia nods. You're free to go for now. We may want to speak again once we review the data. I exit the room, mind spinning. The station's corridors seem narrower now, walls leaning in. I make my way to dispatch, where computers hum in rows and operators shuffle paperwork. The air smells of toner and stale coffee. I slip behind the counter and scan monitors. Digital call logs, CAD entries, audio archives. Somewhere in this labyrinth, someone hid those recordings. I shut the window on my screen before an operator notices. Impossible to access without administrative rights, but the SSD files still exist in evidence. By midday, word trickles through the station. The canal behind Elmwood Avenue was dredged today. Public Works teams were dispatched to clear debris and inspect storm drains for blockages. Someone discovered a second body in the tunnel. A lost pet dog hanging limply from an old tire chain. No sign of foul play, but the team took photos. Animal Control's report will list it as accidental entanglement. I close my eyes, the image flickers in my mind, eyes lifeless, fur matted, chain wrapped around its neck. Another casualty of the tunnel. That afternoon, I field another call, routine burglary in progress, a forced entry at a convenience store uptown. I suit up and head out, pulling on gloves, grabbing my radio, driving away. Blue lights flash through rain-soaked streets. My thoughts churn. The dog, the woman, the child, the recordings. Each seems to breathe beneath my skin, impossible to dismiss. At the scene, the store, brightly lit despite the hour, buzzes with uniformed officers. I secure the perimeter while evidence techs dust for prints. The owner, an elderly man, wrings his hands over a broken glass case. I offer reassurance, take his statement. The report will be filed, the case closed. Back inside, eyes downcast, I glimpse my reflection. In the display glass, hollow-rimmed, fatigued. This is the police life I chose. Yet, every day I save someone, I confront the darkness waiting beneath. That night, I cross the threshold of my home again, leaving the convenience store behind. The envelope in my coat is heavier than ever. I pause before entering, keys in hand. Through the front door, I see my daughter's toys scattered in the hallway, the rabbit resting on the coffee table. I push inside, hang my coat on the rack, then slip into the kitchen. My wife stands at the counter, arms folded, eyes expectant. She asks nothing, yet everything. I hold her gaze for a long moment, then exhale. Long day. She nods, places a gentle hand on my shoulder. I realize I can't tell her about the hutches of audio, the child in the tunnel, the body in the drain, the whispers on the phone. Not yet. Instead, I brew fresh coffee, the steam curling in the lamplight. I hand her a mug and take a seat at the table. She sits next to me. We drink in silence, the quiet both comforting and suffocating. Later, after our daughter is in bed, I find myself in my home office, the same laptop open on the SSD files. I replay the minute long clip. Hold tone, thunder, my voice, the child's laughter, then static. I shove the headphones off and rub my temples. The walls are thin. I worry our daughter might wake, hear something she shouldn't. I shut the computer and gather the evidence envelope. I head back to the precinct in my cruiser around midnight, this time without sirens, without lights, alone. I slip once more into the bullpen through the side door. Everyone's off duty. Lights are dimmed. I make my way to the sergeant's office, find him reviewing files. He looks up, surprised. "Back so soon?" he asks. I hand him a second envelope, sealed, marked SSD evidence. His eyes sharpen. I say, "This came from my home. I want it in the case file." He nods, but the hesitation in his eyes betrays uncertainty. He takes the envelope. "We'll see what happens," he says. I leave him there and wander toward dispatch. The racks of headsets hang empty. I wonder who will pick them up tomorrow, whose voices will cut through the night. I remember my own, pleading, "Please, help." I rest my hand on the console, listen to the faint hum of computers. Somewhere, deep in the system, those files wait. I want them erased, but I know better. Truth, once recorded, cannot be unmade. It only grows louder in the silence. I step outside into the drizzle and stand under a street lamp, rain dripping from my hat brim. Elmwood Avenue lies 2 miles west, quiet in the night. The canal runs unseen, the tunnel hidden. Somewhere beneath, unseen eyes watch. I close my eyes and inhale, air cool and heavy with moisture. I reach into my pocket and feel the envelope there. Inside, a piece of steel, cold and unyielding. Proof. A final fragment of evidence against the dark. I drive home once more, the road slick under my tires. I don't yet know how the case will end. If there will be charges, if anyone will be held responsible for the unlogged calls, the lost child, the dead dog. But I know this. Whoever hid those recordings was trying to bury the truth. And I, for better or worse, have unearthed it. I return to Elmwood Avenue before dawn the next day, parking my cruiser in the alley behind the complex. The morning is too quiet. No birds chirping, no garbage truck rattling through. I clip the supplemental report to my belt, badge glinting in the pale street lamp glow, and slip the sealed evidence envelope into my coat pocket. My boots whisper against the wet pavement as I circle back to the fractured window I first climbed through. The boarding I hammered over the night before has fallen away in the storm's wake, splinters scattered across the threshold. I kneel and press a glove to the sill, noting the smooth wear of repeated climbs, my own prints layered over someone else's. The hallway beyond is dim, the fluorescent glow flickering overhead. I draw my flashlight and step inside, scanning the walls for fresh marks. A thin line of dust along the baseboards remains undisturbed, but a smear of mud arcs across the linoleum floor in the exact trajectory of my earlier dash. I crouch and brush a fingertip along it. Dried earth from the canal, pressed into the grain. Evidence, I remind myself. Proof. I rise and move down the corridor toward apartment 6, where I glimpse that man in pajamas. The door is closed, no scrawled nameplate, nothing to distinguish it from its neighbors. I lift my fist to knock, but a distant echo stops me. Thump, thump, thump. My own heartbeat? A mirror of riot drums somewhere off in the distance? I listen. Silence. Then the thump again, pulse slow, measured. I knock quickly 3 times. "Officer Reed, Fairfax County Police. I need to talk." Footsteps shuffle inside. The door cracks open, revealing the narrow crack of a peephole. The hallway beyond is lit by a single bulb. Inside, a man's shadow crumples against the frame. He wears the same faded pajamas, eyes hollow, hair stringy. He shifts the door farther open but doesn't step out. Behind him, the apartment lies dark and empty. "Are you all right?" I ask quietly. He doesn't meet my gaze, just tilts his head toward the open hallway. "They're still here," he murmurs. "They never stopped." My pulse quickens. I fold my arms. "Who's here?" "Who never stops?" His gaze flickers toward the floor, then snaps back. Voices in the walls. Recordings. He swallows, voice cracking. "I heard them last night, in the walls. Calling me." I recall the cracked photo frame. Sydney's face scratched away, the empty space where identity should have been, and I press on. I found a man in that tunnel with a dog. I found a girl. I found unlogged recordings. I tracked the data back here. I tap my badge. "You know about them, right?" He nods, tears tracing dark rivulets down his cheeks. "They found me first, recorded me, begging." He closes the door, bolts it softly, and I hear the click of the lock. Alone in the corridor, I pinch the bridge of my nose. The walls here have ears, I think, birthing secrets only the brave or foolish unearth. I return to the broken window and climb out, heart heavy. Outside, the sky is steel gray, pregnant with the promise of more rain. I don't pause to rest. I slip through the alley back to my cruiser, the envelope pressing insistently against my side. Dispatch crackles on the radio. "Unit 17, are you clear?" I answer with a terse, "En route to precinct." The reply is lost in static. Back at headquarters, the building feels cavernous, corridors yawning. I head to the network operations room, bank of monitors, tangle of servers, each humming against the hush. The IT specialist, a young officer named Lou, stands by a terminal. "You wanted to see me?" she asks. I nod, producing the SSD envelope. "This came from my home. I need you to verify any deletion logs on the Elmwood Station server." She hesitates as I place it on her desk. "I'll need access from command," she says. I nod. "I'll get authorization." As I turn to go, she calls after me. "Be careful digging in the archives. Some things they don't want found." Her warning lingers in the stale air. In the sergeant's office, I meet Captain Morales, his office door wide open, the afternoon sun cutting stripes across the carpet. He's going over a chain of custody form for the SSD. His gaze is grave. "Officer Reed, I have the access you requested." He pushes a badge across the desk. "Officer Liu is authorized. Do what you need." Relief and dread settle in my gut. "Thank you, sir." I slip the badge into my coat and step out, pockets weighted by truths not yet told. At the network room door, I pause, listening to the click of keys inside. I enter to find Lou and Detective Vasquez huddled over a screen. Images roll in fractured frames. Waveforms, timestamps, file names. "We traced the audio archive logs," Lou says. "A user account deleted them 2 days ago." Vasquez crosses her arms. Account name, Dispatcher 0427. My stomach lurches. That prefix matches the station's dispatcher roster. That number belongs to... I swallow. "Who's that?" Lou taps a lookup command. "One person on the roster has that ID, Emily Rhodes. She's been off duty since last Tuesday." Tuesday, the night before Sydney's counselor's note, before the locker room shower, before I found the SSD at the station. It all falls together, like footprints in mud leading back to her desk. Vasquez's voice is low. We need to find her. Lou nods, pulling up her schedule. She's not on any call logs since her shift ended. No sick days filed, no badge swipe in or out. The corridor outside feels suddenly too tight. I step back into the hallway. Where is she now? I ask quietly. Unknown, Lou says. Her badge isn't active, her radio's off, and her car's still in the lot, but empty. I close my eyes. Emily Rhodes. Dispatcher turned archivist turned perpetrator or protector. I slide from the room, heart pounding. The graveside water from the storm still drips in the station's eaves as I race to the parking garage. My cruiser waits among half a dozen others. I slip in, buckle up, and punch the radio mic. Dispatch, this is Unit 17. Officer emergency traffic only. Then I key the miles to Emily's car. She's sitting inside when I arrive, engine off, head leaned back. The parking garage is silent. Acrid concrete echoing faint dripping. I approach, heart thundering. Her eyes snap open, wild, hunted. I draw my sidearm, voice calm but firm. Dispatcher Rhodes. Step out of the vehicle. She lifts a trembling hand, palm up. Inside, the indented line of a memory card clutched between her fingers. I slide from the cruiser and hold out my hand. She places it in mine. I open my palm. A micro SD card, bare. She whispers, voice ragged. They wanted it gone. My throat clenches. Who, Emily? Who are they? She stares past me, eyes haunted. They collect our calls, she rasped. Every unspoken cry, the ones we never dispatch, and they feed on them. The card shakes in my hand, weightless as a promise. I wipe the cold sweat from my brow. We'll get to the bottom of it, I swear. She nods, but her eyes flick to the shadows beyond the garage exit. The next call, it's coming. Sirens wail down below as backup arrives. I holster my weapon and cuff her gently. Let's go, I say. She stands unsteadily, leaning on me as we walk to the cruiser. The sky above is bruised with the promise of night. I place the SD card into an evidence bag, an echo of my own first find. At the station, I watch Athena Tech Forensics extract every bit of audio data, each clip a thread back to Elmwood, the tunnel, the dog, and the child. Night falls again, heavy and expectant. I sit at my desk, the SD bag before me, and listen through headphones as the first file plays. A heartbeat, a whispered cry. My voice cracking, "Hold on, help is coming." Then silence. I let it loop, watching the waveform crest and fall in time with my own pulse. The lines between dispatcher, officer, victim, and predator blur in the static. I lean back, pressing my temple against the cool metal of the desk lamp. The office is empty, dark except for my lone workstation. My badge feels heavy on my chest. Somewhere, in the labyrinth of underground tunnels, or in a forgotten file on that SD, the real story waits. A story of voices trapped between calls and the ones who recorded them, hidden in the spaces between life and death. I close my eyes and imagine the little girl's face emerging from the darkness. Fragile, hopeful, persistent. Then I reopen them, determined. Tomorrow I'll demand records, subpoena phone logs, scour every inch of Elmwood, dig through dispatch archives. I'll re-interview neighbors, check every welfare check from the past year. I won't stop until every voice is heard. I return to Elmwood Avenue at dawn once more, moving silently through the alley as the first pale light fractures the horizon. My cruiser idles behind me, lights off. I seize the envelope containing the SD card and supplemental report, feeling their weight in my coat pocket like twin anchors. This time, I'm not climbing through broken windows or chasing shadows. I've arranged for a proper search warrant, backup, and a forensic team. But even with them at my side, I know the real work falls to me. Inside the complex, apartments stand vacant in the early hour. I slide through the lobby with Detective Vasquez at my shoulder and Officer Liu bringing up the rear, laptop in hand. We pass the busted camera in the corner, lens cracked, wires severed. Whoever came through here last tried to erase every record. We head down the hallway to apartment 7, the threshold of so many secrets. The door is lock-bolted. No sign of the damaged hull I first breached. Vasquez pries it open with a shim. I step inside, breathing deep. The apartment, once a chaos of overturned furniture and scrawled walls, looks staged now. A fresh coat of neutral paint. Furniture returned to logical positions. The iron cage of fluorescent light overhead hums. I scan for the photo frame that first gave me a name. It's gone. I let my glove trace the wall where it stood. I can still feel the faint tooth of broken glass in the plaster. Evidence techs fan out behind me, dusting invisible prints and photographing corners. I lead the way to the kitchen, where the child's handprint was smeared. The counter is pristine. Only a rectangle of lighter paint marks where the blotch once dried. I kneel and run my finger along the edge, no residue. Lou paces beside me, tapping on her tablet. "No new prints," she says. "They've wiped everything clean." I nod, stomach knotting. "Let's check the tunnel entrance," I tell Vasquez, voice low. We step outside, and the team follows me through the smashed storm grate I pried open weeks ago. The channel remains blocked. Public Works patched it after the dog's body was removed. I bend to the curb, tracing mud streaks in the concrete gutter. My boot presses the dried line. Unmistakable thumbprint size, set deep in the grooves. Vasquez crouches, confirms with her light. "Still here," she murmurs. "Nobody cleaned this." My pulse hammers. The draining board is a breadcrumb trail. I recall the drainage tunnel's low arch where light pinned the girl as she fled. I radio command. "Need the canal team dumpster and plate covers removed. Full access to the underground sewer system." Protocol requires weeks, but I plead urgency, citing the warrant. Permissions come faster when dispatch hears suspected child endangerment. By mid-afternoon, we've removed the manhole cover. Steam rises from the sewer's gaping mouth. I step aside as techs lower in cameras and audio recorders. The team leader, Williams, signals the cable's feed. Black water flows below, littered with debris. They identify the spot where footprints led, a small alcove under concrete beams. The camera's light reveals scratch marks on welded supports. The same claw-like gouges I glimpsed at apartment 6. Vasquez scribbles notes. Lou records audio of the camera's hum. But none of this explains who, what, made the prints or why. Back on street level, we canvass neighbors. Apartment 6's occupant remains missing. His contact info is outdated, no forwarding address. Management can't locate him. An elderly tenant across the hall recalls a child's laughter at odd hours, faint giggles echoing through the vents. He thought it playful, until he noticed the laughter would sometimes continue after lights out, accompanied by the man's quiet murmurs. "It's okay, I'm here." My blood chills at the familiarity. That man wasn't protecting the girl. He was offering comfort to whoever haunted the pipes. Perhaps he was its keeper, recorder, or prisoner, and if so, what happened to him? That evening, I sift through the SD card's recovered files with the forensic team. Hours of static, hold tones, then broken passages. My voice, the dispatcher's, the child's whisper. But at the end of one clip, I hear something new, a soft, deliberate humming. It isn't on any dispatch recording. The tone shifts. A lullaby, distorted, looping beneath the girl's sobs. I freeze the waveform, heart pounding. That lullaby was never in the station's playlist. It was personal, sinister, deliberate. I follow the audio trace metadata. It points to a timestamp 2 months earlier, before Sydney's incident, before the canal dog. A deeper archive, long buried. I can almost feel the archivist's gleeful hand embedding it under layers of deletion logs. The origin, apartment 6's IP address. Whoever lived there was streaming the girl's cries and playing a warped children's tune over the call, then feeding it into the 911 center's emergency channels, only to delete all evidence later. I rubbed my eyes, exhausted. The lullaby's echo drones through my mind like a siren. My phone buzzes, a text from the daycare. Your daughter had an accident, a bump on her head, she's okay. Relief floods me, but fear follows close behind. My 6-year-old could have been on Elmwood Avenue for all I know. Her handprint on the counter, her lullaby echoing at night. I step outside into the chill air, phone in hand, darkness falling again over the complex. I watch the crescent moon reflect in the canal's oily surface. Somewhere beneath, voices keep winding through the tunnels, calling out in static loops, and I wonder, how many others have heard that lullaby without knowing why? How many lost souls have been recorded, monitored, and replayed as entertainment? I slip the SD case into my pocket. The lullaby hums in my head, and I know I can't stop until I find apartment 6's occupant, or whatever remains of him, and the little girl whose song won't fade. I walk back toward my car. The street lamp flickers as I pass, then holds steady. I press the SD into my palm, tracing its cool surface. Tomorrow, I'll subpoena every dispatcher's logs, interview every counselor who flagged Sydney, review every welfare check in GIS coordinates. But tonight I stand alone in the echo of that twisted lullaby, standing guard against the voices that never leave. The wind rustles through the empty lot across the street, and I hear it again, soft and persistent, like a memory surfacing. A child's voice, singing a melody that should have died with her free. I aim my gaze at the boarded window where it all began and take a breath. Somewhere behind that wall, someone waits to play back the next line, and I know I have only one choice: to unlock that door and face whatever note comes next. I still remember the weight of that headset when the first call came through. 2009. A late summer storm rolling in off the Gulf, pressing its humid breath against the rain-streaked glass of the 911 center. I was 22, my voice already rough around the edges from hours of barking into a microphone, telling frightened strangers to stay calm, to describe what they saw, to hold the line even as every instinct urged them to hang up. But that night, when the console lit with coordinates for Old Mill Road, everything changed. I glanced at the glowing map on my screen. A half-paved road hemmed by skeletons of half-built homes. A few barren trees scraped bare by earlier construction crews. Broken streetlights that hummed with cracked fluorescent tubes. Most of my nights were routine, alarm systems triggered by stray cats, elderly callers mistaking backfiring trucks for gunshots, teenagers testing whether they could prank us with fake hoaxes. But this woman's voice cracked open something deeper, something I still can't shake. "Please," she whispered, breath hitching over the static. "I don't know what to do." Her words came in fits, each syllable landing like a raindrop on tin. I pressed my lips against the foam, mic, letting the red emergency light on the console glow warm against my palm. "Ma'am, you're doing fine. Can you tell me exactly where you are?" The line crackled. Rain pounded like drumming heels on pavement. Somewhere in that noise, I heard the loud click of a car door opening, metal scraping against pavement. Then, her soft sob. "They're saying they're police. Plain clothes, they said, just for my safety. But it doesn't feel right." The words shot through me like cold mercury. My heart raced, but my fingers hovered, almost frozen, over the dispatch button. "We have a code, signal 13 for possible abduction." But my system hung there, blinking, as if questioning my own judgment. I cleared my throat, measured my voice into smooth toleration. "Okay, describe them. Vehicle make, color, anything you can see." I pictured her in my mind, young, fragile, maybe slight enough to be mistaken for a child if she spoke too softly. Maybe fearful enough to risk dialing 911, though we always told them that even a misdial could save a life. I waited for details, license plate, badge number, but instead came the scrape of metal. I heard her shuffle away, voice fading into wet static. "My phone's almost out of battery," she gasped. "They said they'd help me get home, but now I just..." Silence. I leaned forward. Outside the small window, a dispatcher tapped her pen, talking quietly to the sergeant in the hallway. Fluorescent lights flickered overhead, and somewhere the old building groaned under the weight of thunder. My own breath came quicker now, wet against the plastic headset. I hit the button. "Ma'am? Are you still there?" Click. The signal tapped out a flat line. My stomach twisted. I punched the callback number, listened to 6 rings tumble into voicemail. Each beep made my chest tighten. If I'd known what that second of silence meant, if I'd known that the woman I imagined fleeing would vanish without a trace, I might have screamed down the line. Instead, I waited, stared at the console, watched as the blinking light froze, then reset. I filled my throat with stale coffee and forced myself to log the details. Every entry felt hollow. Caller female, age estimated early 20s. Location: Old Mill Road near abandoned construction site. Reports: plainclothes officers requesting assistance. Caller expresses doubt about authenticity. Line disconnected, no further trace. I clicked Submit. The dispatch order should flood every available unit. But I never heard the confirmation beep. The map stayed stubbornly unchanged. 3 minutes later, I paged a nearby unit directly. "Station 42, do you copy?" No response. 2 calls tied up on unrelated traffic. My stomach clenched. I did my best to speak lightly into the mic, to mask the adrenaline. "I'll stay on the line if you need me," I said, fingers trembling as I pushed the button again. Silence. My throat tightened around the word, "please." I never got it right. The storm outside hit its apex, rain roaring like a freight train, thunder rattling the steel window frames. My headset buzzed with new calls, false alarms, automated test calls. None of them mattered. I watched the seconds tick in red on my screen. 30, 45, 120. When Unit 42 finally rumbled down Old Mill, headlights carving golden arcs through murky water pooling on the asphalt, they found nothing but puddles. No footprints, no car, no sign of struggle. Days passed. Every time the phone rang, my heart jumped. I'd lean in, hoping, foolishly, that it was her, dialing back to say she'd made it out. But the calls were always routine. A neighbor reporting flashing lights, a homeowner hearing coyotes. Nothing to stir the memory of a terrified voice. Yet sometimes in the static I thought I heard her, "Help me." A soft plea carried on the wind. I found myself standing outside the dispatch center one evening, tracing my finger along Old Mill Road on the map screen, imagining her route, her sprint through waterlogged ditches toward that lone apartment block. 500 meters that felt a million lifetimes. I tried to replay every decision. Why had I hesitated on the dispatch? Why had I assumed she'd be safe when she gave me landmarks? Each question buried me deeper in regret. Back in the center, the sergeant noticed my pallor. "You okay?" she asked, peering over my shoulder. I swallowed, shook my head. "Just reliving that call," I admitted. She nodded, soft. "We all have those." But I didn't believe her, not anymore. Night after night, I sat under the low hum of fluorescent lights, rain tapping a brittle rhythm on the window, waiting for the console to light up with her return. Instead, the emergency light blinked red in the silence. The weight of that headset pressed into my temples, as if reminding me that some voices, once cut off, never find their way back. And so I stayed, fingers poised, breath held, until the storm passed and my shift ended. Still, wondering what it meant to hold silence in place of help, and what I'd done to let that frantic voice slip between the static and the dark. Unanswered questions hung in the heavy air. Had she reached safety at all? Or was every crossed wire, every stalled dispatch, a step toward some darker ending that I never witnessed? By the time my next shift rolled around, I thought I had rehearsed the worst. I sat at the same corner desk, the same headset cold against my ear, coffee cold and bitter at my elbow. The rain had eased to a steady drizzle, but the fluorescent light still hummed like an accusation. I spent the first 15 minutes of the night rereading my own report. Every word precise, every timestamp logged, except the one moment I froze. Calls drifted in, a car alarm blaring at 2:13 on Pinecrest Drive. A man convinced his house was haunted by rats scratching in the walls. A panicked mother whose toddler had climbed into the neighbor's unlocked pool. I answered each with practiced calm, guiding each caller through their crisis as though I could redeem myself with every prompt and reassurance. But with each breath I took, I felt the memory of Old Mill Road nudge closer, like a shadow slipping under the door. Around 3:40 a.m., my console blinked with an incoming call from an unrecognized number. The line crackled, an echo of static so familiar that my heart lurched. I cleared my throat and pressed the PTT button. 911, what is your emergency? No voice came, just ragged breaths, shallow and uneven, followed by a clicking that sounded like metal sliding against concrete. My finger froze. This was the same pattern. A breath, a click, then silence. I waited, counting the seconds as sweat beaded on my forehead. Then a whisper so faint I almost imagined it. "Please, make it stop." Heat rushed to my cheeks. I realized I hadn't paged a unit yet. I toggled the dispatch window. Coordinates were blank. This call was masked through a VoIP line. My worst fear, I might never know where to send help. I hit the callback number, but it went straight to voicemail. "You've reached the Como County 911 Center," the automated message intoned. I hung up, pressed my forehead against the cool plastic of the headset. I tried again. The call came back, one ring, then a click. I answered on the third ping. "Can you tell me where you are?" My voice came out shakier than I intended. Silence, almost as if the caller was ripped away. Then a soft sob. "I..." And the line crackled into a tortured symphony of static. I grabbed the backup headset, switched channels, paged every available patrol. "All units, Signal 13 advised." I forced the words through gritted teeth. "Cross-refer with VoIP trace immediately." The dispatch protocol kicked in. Lights flared on my console, but no one in the center moved. Everyone was tied to other calls or in briefing rooms. I faxed an urgent note to dispatch. Possible repeat abduction call, location unknown, line unstable. I didn't wait for acknowledgement. Outside the narrow window, I saw the sergeant's silhouette pass by, pausing to scan my console. She didn't stop, didn't ask. No one did. Everyone treated it like just another glitch in the system. And in a way, I understood, they'd heard it all before. But I hadn't. My shift dragged on, hours stretching longer than any cell would allow. I replayed the call in my mind. The phantom rasp of breathing. The metallic click that could have been a door latch or the edge of a weapon. My stomach twisted as I imagined the caller crouched under a pool table or pressed against a wall, too terrified to whisper their address. I closed my eyes, saw her face, or what I wished her face had been. Soft and frightened, pleading for rescue. At 5:17, the center's senior operator slid a cup of fresh coffee onto my desk, wordlessly. I looked up, managing a grim smile. She offered a nod, sympathetic but empty. "Hang in there," she said. I swallowed a mouthful of bitterness and nodded back, swallowing the tremor in my hands. By the time dawn threatened through the grime-streaked windows, the rain had finally stopped. My shift ended, but I couldn't leave. I printed every trace log, every radio transcript, every voicemail recording. I took them home in a worn folder, spread them across my kitchen table under a single lamp. My wife, then fiancée, watched from the doorway, concerned but helpless. I didn't have answers. I had only questions. Night after night, I pored over those sheets, tracking flurries of static and code numbers that never lined up with known units. I cross-checked every call from the previous month, looking for patterns. Maybe the same VoIP line pinging repeatedly at odd hours, or the same partial plate number half heard over rain-rattled audio. Nothing matched. It was as if someone had designed a call to slip through the cracks, never to be traced, never to leave a breadcrumb behind. I started staying late at the station, pretending to catch up on training modules, but really combing through archived calls. I listened for the subtlest hints. A jealous ex-boyfriend's voice clipped in the background, the echo of footsteps that didn't recede normally, the slight tremor that might betray a second caller listening in. When one night I stumbled on a string of echoing tones, an electronic chirp that recurred at exactly 1:22 a.m. on 3 separate nights, I thought I had a lead. I presented the pattern to the sergeant in our morning briefing. "Look at the timestamps," I urged, pointing to the pie chart display on the projection screen. These calls all came in from different VoIP providers, but they share this signature tone. She leaned forward, eyes narrowing. For a moment, I thought she believed me. Then she tapped a finger and said, "We'll have IT check it. Let's move on." And that was it. The chart vanished, replaced by traffic collision stats and procedural updates. No one else seemed to feel the weight of those late-night whispers. They filed it under unverified anomaly and moved on with their lives. But I couldn't. Weeks turned into months. I began to dread the sound of my own voice in dispatch recordings. Too crisp, too professional, too removed from the raw terror I knew was out there. I started sleeping with the living room lamp on, haunted by dreams of a pale face emerging from rain-slick asphalt, mouth opening in a silent scream that I never answered. Eventually, I requested reassignment, any duty that kept me away from the console. They moved me to training, drilling recruits on protocols and codes, deadlines and paperwork. I taught them how to respond to Signal 13, how to handle VoIP tracing, how to escalate calls when lines went dead. I showed them my notes, my logs, hoping they'd see the urgency I felt. Most of them dutifully took notes, never asking the obvious question, "What happened to that caller?" I never told them, not fully, not until I knew more. But deep down, I realized there was nothing more to know. She was out there somewhere, or gone forever, and my training, my protocols, my codes, They were useless against a voice cut short by static. Now, even years later, I still flinch at the click of a headset being placed on a desk. I still startle at a half-heard breath on the line, and sometimes late at night I dial 911 from my own cell phone just to hear the ringing, to feel the syntax of 911, what is your emergency, roll off my tongue one more time. Because somewhere in that echo, in the space between dial tone and dispatch, lies the moment I failed her, and I am still waiting for her to call back. I couldn't help but laugh the first time I heard that signature tone again, almost 7 years later, and it still cut through the routine calls like a knife through wet cardboard. It was 2:47 on a humid Tuesday, the kind of night where even the cicadas outside fall silent, almost in solidarity with the storm gathering at the horizon. I was sitting at the training classroom desk, reviewing the latest revision to our VoIP tracing protocol, when the instructor's headset clicked off and the speakers crackled with our center's bumper music. It was a silly melody meant to mask dead air between calls, but in my head it sounded like nails on a chalkboard. An unwelcome reminder of all the calls I'd ever missed. The instructor cleared her throat and said, "All right, Lieutenant," using the old term out of habit, though I'd been downgraded to a civilian trainer years ago. "We've got a live feed on Channel 3. Feel free to have a listen." She flashed a half smile that didn't reach her eyes and slipped out of the room, leaving the door ajar. My heart thudded as the speakers hummed, then burst into that all-too-familiar pattern. 3 sharp tones, rising in pitch, then a low whir. I swiveled in my chair. Everyone else was scribbling in notebooks. No one else even flinched. I closed my eyes, took a breath, and willed myself to stay calm. This was just a training exercise feed, simulated, but the echo in my bones said otherwise. I recognized the mechanical click that came after the tones, not recorded, not digital, but live. Something physical in the caller's environment, shifting, scraping against concrete. It was impossible, but I heard it clearly. My desk phone buzzed, an internal line. My finger hovered over the receiver. Could I pretend I'd misheard? Could I chalk it up to stress, to my own mind playing tricks, after all these years? I glanced at the digital clock on the wall, 2:48. If this really was a training feed, they'd looped a known scenario. But if it wasn't, then the person on the other end might still be alive, waiting for me to trace that tone back to send help. A bead of sweat slid down my temple. I reached for the receiver, thumb trembling as I pressed line 1. The click I heard through the speakers mirrored the click in my headset. 2 events perfectly in sync. 911. "What is your emergency?" I said without thinking, my voice low, steady. Silence answered me, thick and expectant. Then the breathing returned, labored, shallow, as if someone was straining to get air through a half-collapsed lung. My scalp tingled as I lifted my other hand to the PTT button on my training mic. "Sir, can you tell me—" My words sputtered into the void. The figure 8 of fluorescent light above me flickered. I felt the weight of every wall in that small classroom pressing down. Somewhere in the distance, an air conditioner groaned, then cut out altogether. The breathing slowed, then stopped. I leaned forward, chest tight. "Sir?" I whispered. The speakers crackled with feedback. Then came the single, wet gasp, as though someone had been holding their breath for minutes, finally exhaling into a paper bag. My ears burned, my vision narrowed. My cell phone buzzed again. An alert from the center. Unauthorized use of training channel detected. I froze. If they traced the feedback to my mic, if they realized I'd broken protocol, I'd be suspended, maybe fired. But I couldn't pull away. My skin felt on fire. The gasp rose into a whimper. "Please." That one word was shredded raw, like a scream taped over with static. I closed my eyes, pressed my forehead to the desk. The note in my pocket, the old folder of logs, VoIP traces, the faxes I'd never sent, burned hotter than iron against my thigh. "Hold on," I whispered, sliding across the desk to reach for a pen. My notebook trembled in my hand as I jotted down the timestamp, 2:49. The breathing resumed, this time accompanied by a new sound, distant scraping, like fingernails dragging against metal. It crescendoed into a soft, rhythmic clatter. My chest seized. Someone stepped into the doorway, the instructor's silhouette framed by the dim hall light. She paused, took in the scene. My hunched form, the open notebook, the sway of the speakers. "What are you doing?" she asked. I looked up, voice raw. "He's here," I said. "Someone's here, and they're calling." I pointed to the speakers. The classroom fell silent except for that ragged breathing, now slow, methodical, as though the caller knew I was listening, was counting on me to trace the call. The instructor's eyes widened. She crossed the room in 2 steps, flipped a switch under the console, and the light surged back to full brightness. The breathing cut out instantly, leaving a vacuum where it had been. The speakers clicked off. The room fell quiet, suffocating. She opened her mouth, then closed it. "That was a simulation," she finally said, her voice tight. "Part of Scenario 12B, designed to test VoIP latency response." I stared at her, chest heaving. My pen dropped from my fingers. "That tone," I said, voice cracking. "It wasn't recorded. It was live." She hesitated, then shook her head. "All simulations are pre-recorded. We don't risk live feeds on the training channel." She sounded certain, but her eyes flicked to the door, to the hallway beyond. For the first time, I saw her doubt. In the hush, I realized the hum of early morning life outside would soon rise. I could leave this room and bury the moment beneath protocols and paperwork, or I could follow one more clue. I swiped the training mic off its base, jammed it into my jacket pocket, and grabbed my old headset from the desk drawer. My pulse hammered as I walked past the instructor, out of the classroom, down the corridor toward the center's back doors. The building was empty at this hour, hall lights extinguished, only emergency exit signs glimmering. I pressed the headset to my ear, flipped it on. A faint click responded. Then static. Then, just for an instant, the sharp chirp of that signature tone. My breath caught, and somewhere beyond the doors I heard running footsteps. My feet pounded the concrete corridor, echoing against metal doors and darkened windows as I chased the phantom footsteps. The emergency exit swung open before me, its red exit sign casting a sickly glow on the wet pavement outside. A thin sheet of rain glimmered under the parking lot lights, each drop trembling like a nervous pulse. I pressed the old headset tighter against my ear, praying for another flicker of that signature tone, that fractured call that had haunted me for years. The center's backyard lay deserted, rows of crushed gravel leading to an overgrown chain-link fence. Beyond it, I could just make out the hulking bulk of the VoIP server room, a squat brick building we rarely visited except for scheduled maintenance. I swallowed the knot in my throat and sprinted toward it, the rain soaking through my jacket, plastering my hair to my scalp. The headset crackled as I ran, distant static, then a faint rasp of breathing. I skidded to a halt at the server room door. The metal surface was cold under my palm. The handle turned with an eerie shriek of rusted hinges. I slipped inside, heart hammering, and flicked on the lone fluorescent tube overhead. Its buzzing filled the cramped space, racks of blinking routers, tangled cables, blue indicator lights shimmering like watchful eyes. I could feel the walls closing in, an electric hum vibrating through my boots. I edged past the racks, tracing a path between dusty cable trunks toward the back panel where the VoIP logs were stored. My gloved fingers hovered over the console's keyboard, but I didn't dare sit down yet. Instead, I tipped my head, listening. The breathing parted the hum of machinery, soft, measured, as if someone crouched near the server racks waiting. Each exhalation sounded sharper here, magnified by the hard tile floor and low ceiling. My throat went dry. I tapped the headset's call button. 911, what is your emergency? I whispered into the mic, voice trembling. The line crackled. Silence stretched thick. Then the faintest click, like the snap of a latch. A low moan of air, quick and pained, drifted across the room. I froze, fingers rigid on the keyboard. I forced myself to take a single step forward. Where are you? I can help. Before I could finish, a heavy footstep thudded behind me. I swung around, half expecting a uniformed dispatcher. But the space was empty, save for the humming servers in the rain-streaked window. My breath came in ragged bursts. I told myself it was a thief, a stray security guard, anything but what I feared most. I pivoted back to the console and logged in, my password trembling on my lips as I typed. The main VoIP trace utility loaded slowly, green status bars pulsing under my gaze. I scanned the recent connection logs. Dozens of routine test calls, auto dials from internal lines, but one stood out. An anonymous VoIP line that had pinged the system 4 times in the last 20 minutes. Its timestamp read 2:49. Exactly the moment I heard the tone in training. My heart stuttered. I clicked its entry, expanding the details. The IP address was masked, the provider unregistered, a ghost call. But the log included packet sniff metadata, small bursts of noise, pattern pulses I recognized. The signature tone, 3 rising beeps followed by a low whir, then the wet click. I felt that old knot tighten, realizing this call had never been simulation. It had been live, arriving here in my own network, to this very console while I sat in that classroom. The rain's rhythm grew louder, as if tapping at the window's frame, urging me to move. I scrolled down the trace, latency reports, jitter data, then a thin trail of RTP packets labeled audio in 1. I clicked play, static, then very faint the first beep, rising cleanly across the speakers. My chest seized. I swallowed, clicking faster, dragging the slider forward. The second tone, higher, then the third, then the click. And beneath it, breath. Sharp, urgent, as if someone's lungs were pressed too tightly against a throat. The gasp came, unmistakable, right before the line cut. I slammed the mouse back. My vision blurred. The console's lights seemed too bright, the hum of the fans too loud. I realized I was standing on the same threshold where I'd first answered that call years ago. Only now, I held the proof that it was never a glitch. A scrape of metal made me spin around again. In the corner of my eye, I saw movement. A dark shape drifting behind the server racks. My blood ran cold. I grabbed a nearby Ethernet cable, the only weapon in sight, and crept forward, each step trembling. The overhead light flickered, the shadow dissolved. I called out, voice echoing in the tight room. "Show yourself!" Silence, then a soft sniff like someone trying not to cry. My chest heaved. I followed the sound to a narrow maintenance alcove behind the racks, where the floor grate hung open, revealing a crawl space. I knelt, shining a shaky beam from my pocket flashlight into the darkness below. The light caught on something reflective. A small phone screen, cracked but active, its faint glow illuminating a pair of terrified eyes. "Don't come closer," a voice croaked, barely above a whisper. "Please." I froze. The face was pale, features damp with tears and rain. I recognized the shock in her eyes, lost, desperate, hoping. My hands shook as I extended the light. "It's me," I said softly. "I'm a 911 operator. I'm here to help." She swallowed, voice quivering. They're coming." My pulse thundered. I glanced back at the open crawl space. Darkness swallowing the narrow tunnel, ending in pitch. I imagined footsteps on concrete, closing in. The server room door clicked. I turned, adrenaline flooding my veins. A tall silhouette filled the doorway. High boots, a long trench coat dripping rainwater, a badge gleaming at chest level. My breath caught in my throat. This time, it wasn't plain clothes imposters claiming authority. It was the real thing. A Florida State Trooper's crest glinted under the hallway light, but the trooper's face was obscured by shadow, voice low and hollow. "You shouldn't have traced that call," the trooper said, tone flat. "Let her go." My grip tightened on the cable. I took a step forward. "She's my responsibility now," she called me. From the crawl space came a soft gasp. The woman's eyes were wide with panic as she tried to rise, only to wince in pain, bruises darkening her forearms. I felt bile rise in my throat. The trooper advanced slowly, coat brushing the server racks, eyes never leaving mine. "That line goes both ways," he said. "You answered 2 transmissions tonight. Once in the classroom, once here. You're trespassing on an active field op." Field op. The words landed like stones in my gut. My teeth clenched. "You're working with the kidnappers," I spat. "You let her hide here." He paused at the threshold, the red exit sign behind him flickering. Rain dripped off his shoulders onto the floor. He reached into his coat, my heart leapt, then withdrew not a weapon, but a small black recorder. He pressed a button. A low-frequency hum emanated, then the same 3 beeps, the signature tone, played back through the hall's speakers. My knees buckled. He spoke over the playback, voice calm. "Every call we traced, every simulation we ran, fed back into our network so we could locate her." He stepped aside, gestures fluid but mechanical. "I'm here to extract her." I realized the crawl space was the only exit this way. Any other route led directly back into the center where help would be swamped by conspirators. The woman's sob echoed behind me, and I felt impossibly torn, between my oath to save callers and the stark certainty that this trooper represented a force I could not override. Lightning flared beyond the rain-streaked window, illuminating his profile. Sharp jawline, unreadable eyes. He clicked the recorder off. "End of transmission." In that fractured second of darkness, I heard her gasp, no, a scream, muffled, breaking free from static. Then silence. My blood froze mid-pulse. I didn't know which command to follow, the one in my training, to rescue a caller at any cost, or the one in my gut, telling me that things were never what they seemed. The trooper's mouth moved, but words fell into the hum of the machines. He lifted a single hand, not to draw a weapon, but as if to ward me off. His face softened, almost kindly. "Let's go," he said. My heart thundered. I looked to the crawl space, the woman's terrified eyes begging me to act. And then everything shifted. The lights blinked out. The hum of the servers died. Footsteps thundered in the hall outside. And somewhere, just beyond the thick door, shouts. 2 voices calling my name, urgent, alive. I stood frozen, caught between duty and dread, as the darkness swallowed us all. The footsteps multiplied in the darkness, echoing off the steel walls as the door behind me banged shut with a hollow thud. My pulse hammered in my ears, drowning out the faint hum of the emergency exit lights that flickered on, barely casting enough glow to see the outline of the trooper's coat and the barely visible shape of the woman huddled in the crawlspace. I cracked the headset microphone against my lips, my voice rough as gravel. "Hold on, stay where you are." I took a single step toward the trooper, chest tight, every instinct screaming to pull the woman free and run, but he raised a gloved hand, palm toward me, ordering caution. "You can't do that," he said, though his tone betrayed nothing, no threat, no hesitation, only the flat certainty of someone who'd rehearsed this moment 1,000 times. "We need to process the extraction properly." I swallowed, trying to calm the swirl in my head. My jaw ached from clenching. My eyes burned from adrenaline. "Process?" I scoffed, scanning his face. In underlit profile, the badge looked official enough. Florida Department of Law Enforcement, he'd said. But why hide in shadows? Why cloak an extraction in subterfuge? "You brought her here to hide her?" He nodded once, curt. "She's our asset." The word hit me like ice water. Asset, not survivor, not victim, not witness. Asset. My pulse sputtered. I glanced at the woman again, skin as pale as moonlight, eyes rimmed red, fingers twitching against the edge of the crawlspace. She stared at me with a terror so raw I felt it in my gut. "If she's an asset, why do you treat her like contraband?" He stepped aside, gesturing with a flick of his wrist toward the racks. "Because the identities involved are volatile. She witnessed something you weren't meant to uncover." My mind raced, trying to connect the dots. The signature tone, the masked VoIP calls, the staged classroom simulation. Every piece had seemed like madness, until now. "Witnessed what?" I demanded, though part of me recoiled from the answer. He paused, as if weighing whether to trust me. "A trafficking ring within the department," he said quietly. "I started picking up anomalies, vanishing 911 calls, small signals intercepting from our own network. Then you began investigating. You found traces. We needed someone credible to shepherd her out, to keep her alive until we could move her overseas." A dull ache spread across my chest. The trooper's words tumbled through my mind. Trafficking ring, vanishing calls, concealed protocols. He'd said, "within the department," and I thought of the sergeant who'd brushed off my charts, the instructors who pretended it was a simulation. They'd been protecting a criminal network all along, and I'd been a pawn. Anger flared. I should have broken protocol years ago. I should have pulled every console offline, sounded a full alarm. Instead, I fed her story into the system, allowed her to slip through bureaucratic cracks. Now, I stood in a server room surrounded by conspirators. I spun back to the woman. "You risked everything to call me," I said, voice shaking. "Why me?" She let out a broken laugh, so faint it might have been a sob. "Because you were the only one who listened," she whispered, crawling out onto the tile floor. Bruises blossomed across her arms, but her eyes held a spark, defiant, alive. "You never hung up." I knelt beside her, pressing my jacket into her shaking shoulders. The headset felt heavy, like the weight of every missed call and every life lost in silence. "We'll get you out," I vowed. But even as I said it, I doubted I could keep that promise. Lightning flared beyond the narrow window, blazing across the server racks, revealing the trooper's face in stark relief. Sweat gleamed at his temples. "We move now," he ordered, voice urgent. "Protocol dictates extraction within the next 10 minutes. They'll trace any delay." I planted one hand on the console, mind racing. "Protocol," I echoed, the word tasting bitter. Which protocol? The one that orders you to kidnap survivors? The one that demanded the life of a terrified caller over your own code of duty? His jaw tightened. You don't understand the bigger picture, he said. We're protecting dozens more like her, undercover assets who could blow the lid off a network funneling women through emergency channels, disappearing them in plain sight. Pain shot through me, the sharp sting of betrayal. The entire system, the one I'd sworn to uphold, had been feeding a cycle of violence. Simple 911 calls twisted into hunting traps. My training, my voice, my trust, all weaponized against the most vulnerable. She looked at me, eyes wide with fear and hope. In that moment, I saw what I'd become. A senator's fear, an operator whose calm voice could lure or save, whose hesitation could condemn or redeem. I realized I could still choose, comply and walk away, letting the trooper walk her out into hidden flights and anonymity, or stand up and help her break free from the rot at the heart of the system. The hum of the servers grew louder, syncing with the rapid thud of my heart. Rain hammered the roof, like the desperate tapping of someone trapped beneath rubble. The door rattled as shouts rose outside. Uniformed officers flooding the hallway, flashlights cutting beams through the rain-dark night. I heard the sergeant's familiar voice, "Stand down! That room is off limits." My breath caught in my throat. The very people I'd trusted were coming to reinforce the cover-up. They thought this was a controlled operation. They would never believe a renegade operator and a traumatized witness. The trooper turned to me, rigid. "You need to move her now," he hissed, "or we'll have to." His words died as the door burst inward, flooding the cramped room with bright light and frantic faces. The sergeant stormed in, pistol drawn. Behind her, 2 uniformed deputies fanned out, weapons raised. Her eyes locked on me, then flicked to the woman. Her face was the mask of a mother protecting protocol more than people. "Lieutenant," she barked, though I no longer held that rank. "What the hell is going on here?" I rose slowly, headset still pressed to my ear. The emergency light reflected in my sight. Every part of me trembled, but I forced my voice steady. "You never told me we were the ones disappearing people," I said, taking a cautious step forward. She called 911. She did everything right. We're supposed to rescue callers, not trade them like poker chips. Silence slammed into the room. The trooper stepped behind me, blocking the sergeant's path. The deputies held their fire, but didn't lower their weapons. The woman crumpled against my leg, tears glittering. The sergeant's face twisted, fury battling disbelief. "Listen to me," she snarled. "This is a classified counter-trafficking unit. We operate off the books." "Off the books!" I spat, mind spinning. "That's bureaucratic hell for disappearing victims, not saving them." Her finger tightened on the trigger. "Back off," she warned. And in that charged moment, every moral code I'd ever held came crashing into one immutable truth. There was no protocol more sacred than protecting the innocent. No policy more binding than the vow I'd taken as an operator to stand by every caller. I lifted the headset mic to my mouth. "Listen up," I said, voice cutting through the standoff. "You want to play hero? Then do it. Bring in a real team, FBI, state inspectors. Let them sort the mess, or step aside." The sergeant's eyes narrowed, and for a heartbeat I thought she'd fire. Then the trooper, her partner, her co-conspirator, tapped her shoulder and said something low. She wavered, pistol trembling. Suddenly, the entire room seemed to inhale, the rain outside slashing against the windows as if urging me onward. The woman looked up, hope rising in her eyes. I reached down, grasped her arm, and helped her to her feet. Behind me, the sergeant and trooper squared off, both glaring, both flagging. The deputies hesitated, guns nodding uncertainly between us. And then, as the first streak of dawn crept across the storm-dark sky, I realized it all boiled down to one choice in that charged silence: uphold a corrupted chain of command or break it. I turned to the woman, voice gentle. "I've got you," I promised. "We're stepping out, together." She nodded, tears tracing clean lines through her grime. We moved as one toward the server room door, past the flashing badges and the storm-washed ground waiting outside. My thoughts spun ahead to the moment we emerged. Into the line of officers, into the storm bracing for new revelations. And as I pushed the door open, the rain fell harder, like bullets of water forcing truth into the open, washing clean the lines between duty and justice. The world beyond was blurred by droplets on glass, but I saw clearly the one question I would carry with me into whatever came next. Were we ever really the ones who answered the call?